Here we go. Now we're live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Thursday Fastball with the Crusty Canuck podcast. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. With me today is Mr. Bennett Hunter, a very, very staunch, outspoken Canadian libertarian. He has a great channel on YouTube, and by his own means, he's an exceptional human being from New Brunswick, Canada. Family man, blue-collar aficionado, and all-around great guy. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. Bennett Hunter. Welcome to the Crusty Canuck podcast, Mr. Hunter.
Why, thank you, John. That was a really great introduction. I'm very humbled by that, and I really appreciate you bringing me on. And once again, I'm sorry about last weekend and the fact that I had to postpone, unfortunately, but I did have something that did come up in my personal life. These kind of things do tend to happen, but I'm really appreciative that you were gracious enough to have me back on this soon, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Not a problem. Not a problem. It's good to have you. Especially in these trying times that we call Canadian politics and our democracy.
Yeah.
All the more reasons for us to actually sit and get the dialogue out there with other persons in the, not in the same critical thought pattern, but when it comes to common sense, i.e. basic liberty. Now,
right.
Question for you is, what brought you into the liberty spectrum, the libertarian spectrum?
Okay, that's actually a good question. And I wish it was an exceptionally good answer, but it unfortunately tends to be a repeat of so many other, not just Canadians, but Americans, which suggests to me why this kind of stuff, as much as I'm not into politics, it's the bully pulpit. It's the fact that at least once you've heard someone espouse, things that resonate with you as it pertains to liberty and freedom, and things that as a Canadian, Ron Paul, just say, I watched the presidential elections. As a Canadian who was a truck driver and spent actually the bulk of my time as a truck driver, when you're out for your two-week RDO, out of those 2 weeks, you're in the States probably about 80% of that time. So for 8.5 years, I spent a lot of time in the U.S., got to learn and meet lots of American people, kind of learn a little bit more about their culture. Plus in Canada, we're inundated with all their culture anyways through the television, movie, radio, and all that stuff. And anyways, I watched in the 2008 and then again 2012, this Ron Paul, this older gentleman, run in the Republican Party, but wasn't really much of a Republican. He identifies as a libertarian, and he kept saying all these things that you could watch presidential elections or even in Canada, right? Premier elections in the provinces, or even federal elections, and never hear from any politician, not even one of them. And that's the thing. It's like, wow, how is it that this one guy down there is saying all these things that I've never been privy to or heard before? And meanwhile, even at that time, it's the early ages, but we're in the information age here. How is it that I've gone through education, all these things? I had family members, wise elders, like all these people that were so knowledgeable around me and should be in positions of authority and wisdom, but some of them, or I should say all of them, seemingly never learned what this one old gentleman that at the time was in his, I think it was early 70s at the time, was saying all these things as it pertains to liberty. And once I heard the term libertarian, because I'd never, as a Canadian, because predominantly, especially on the East Coast, predominantly, you're talking about mostly English, Scottish, Irish, right? French. Came across the pond from, does just in geographic, right? Tells you most of the people and the names of the cities and the provinces, right? Kind of tells you I typically identify, if you come typically from, let's say, England or the UK, would be liberal or conservative or Tory. And what's the other one they use there? Tory, liberal. Anyway, so basically liberal and conservative. Yeah, but I never heard the term libertarian. But liberal to me was what most of the time growing up, I would have figured individual rights. They still kind of talk about the same kind of thing, but not so much, not so nuanced as this libertarian. And what I learned is libertarian, as it pertains to politics, it's actually downstream. Even Ron Paul will tell you, if you ask him, politics is actually it's downstream of culture. And actually, the reason why he ran under the Republican Party in both times that he ran for president is because back in the in the late 1980s, he did run under the Libertarian Party in the U.S., but you don't get access to the bully pulpit because the system is set up, right? So it's the left versus right. So it's the Democrats versus the Republicans, right? It's Canadians versus the left. No, but you know what I mean? So it's the left versus right, the whole divide. Yeah. And once again, but this guy, he used the fact that he could have the bully pulpit because the media pays attention to presidential candidates. So he ran as a Republican. And once again, people like myself, and I don't know, millions, I don't know how many people in total, but at least hundreds of thousands of people in both countries became very awakened and aware of things that, like I say, we were never privy to in all of our history. And like I say, once you learn these things, I imagine myself even at the time, and you got to be careful of that because it can fuck with your ego too. But I remember even at the time, it's like, geez, I almost felt like it's almost like being Galileo in the days when everyone said that the earth was the center of the universe. You're learning things that nobody around you even seems to grasp or understand. It makes you feel like, wow, like almost enlightened stuff. But then you got to really sit back. You got to kind of sit down, digest. And fortunately now I've had, 10 years of all this, and I've tested it. I've listened. And what I do is, because I come from a history of, I love building engines. I love performance related stuff and all that stuff. So to me, it's step back and let's look at the big picture. So I kept testing, conservatism, liberalism, every kind of ideology or premise I've ever heard of. And I just went on went down that rabbit hole to look, and everywhere I looked, there's nobody or nothing that could destroy or negate the premises and the principles espoused, the three fundamental principles that libertarians have entrenched. And why that is because it's not a political endeavor. It's not a political party, even though there are political parties that espouse libertarian principles. But libertarians it's about the philosophy of liberty. So you're stepping back from politics and you're talking about, metaphysics, epistemology, and ethics. You got to bring all these to the table. And the three core principles of libertarianism, to me, it's like, well, if we're going to have anything that's going to be universal, like if I was raising my kids and I couldn't convince them to turn or pivot towards Christianity, which it's not cool these days to pivot towards Christianity. I still consider myself a Christian and stuff. But I was like, what could you do for the secular world today? How would secular people, without the beauty of Christianity and all that brings to us, how would you gain any semblance of ethics that are universally consistent that you could teach to anybody? And like I say, we're so universal that it didn't leave any exceptions where somebody gets any magical power to control the rest. Because that's basically what statism, that's what the government does, is we're not allowed to use force against anyone. We're not allowed to steal from anyone, but the state has this so-called legal authority to do so, right? Which is why you end up, after a couple hundred years, in every country that's ever tried statism, right? You eventually break down, and societies eventually break down, and that's why you go through revolutions. And to me, it's like, why do we have to keep? I get why this happened in the past, but we've advanced beyond this. We have this knowledge. Why do we got to continue revolutions that cause so much harm, so much strife, and so much pain and suffering for so many people? Why can't we advance past this stuff and just use these fundamental principles? And I'm just going to deal with and espouse those principles now. So the most important aspects of libertarianism is self-ownership. I own myself, and I've never met another human being in life. Once you've explained that very simple concept, and I haven't actually met anyone yet, thankfully, that said, no, somebody else has ownership over me. So usually, right, you'll find agreement that everybody at the very least will agree that, yes, I am the owner of myself, my mind, my body, right? And then by natural extension, which is what property rights is it's not just what I produce or provide, but I mean, the fact that I'm using my mind and my hands. So the property that I have is my mind and my body, and everything that I produce or provide is a natural extension of that, and it's done voluntarily. Well, that is mine as well. Nobody gets to claim ownership over something that I produced or provided or created, right? So those things are real simple. And like I say, most people, even small children, understand these concepts. So, and it's in the secular realm without having to get into the big meta stories or narratives in terms of Christianity, which I still have a affinity for and really do appreciate. But then there was that third part, right, which completely ties in with Christianity as far as I'm concerned, which is the non-aggression principle. Don't hit, don't steal. Isn't that what we were all taught as kids? That's the whole thing. And whether I went to basically school, right, whether I went to Sunday school or church or most people in the community, that was an accepted norm. And it was, most people had a genuine sense of respect for each other when you had that as the emphasis in how we deal with each other's don't hit, don't steal, right? Each other, we're all unique individuals, treat each other as unique individuals and don't impose yourself on them. And like, to me, that was the area where it's like, oh, okay, now I get it. And once you extrapolate, that's the thing. Once you have the formula, just like for me, once I know the formula of how to build an engine, that's the thing. It's not just 3 principles on paper or parchment or something that you can have in your head. It actually can guide you through your entire life, right? And these are things that you can test every day. You don't have to reference a Bible. Like these are ethics that are built and entrenched on observable, universally consistent morals and ethics. And to me, that is the way. And not to suggest that we're all going. That's the other thing. People say, "Oh, you libertarians are utopians." Well, actually, libertarians accept wholly that there are people who aren't going to uphold or adhere to these principles. But that's the point of self-defense, right? That's the point of me having the ability. And maybe we'll get into that conversation today in terms of, gun rights, and not just gun rights, but anything. I mean, even if you want to take mixed martial arts or anything to protect or defend yourself against other people, that is the point, right? And that to me is the most peaceful way. And I think everyone, that whether it's you or I or anyone we've ever talked to or dealt with in life, I think most people would say the best relationships they've ever had are with people where they didn't use force or violence or steal from each other. Those are the best relationships. Those are the longest lasting. Those are the ones where you have mutual respect and where you're not always looking over your shoulder all the time. Today, under the type of statism that we currently exist, it's once again, it's that left versus right. And what we're seeing today is it's turned so inwards, and the fighting is so to the point where it's a zero-sum game. There's no cooperation anymore. It's about one side's going to take all the power at the expense of the other. And as a libertarian, I'm saying, listen, that's like the kid. I like to use this analogy, like with authoritarian mommy, authoritarian daddy. That's like the kid saying, listen, daddy brings some good shit to the table. Mommy brings some good shit. Matter of fact, they both bring some bad stuff to the table too. I don't want neither of them to be canceled. I don't want neither of them to be ignored. I'll take the good parts of dad and I'll take the good parts of mom, and let's try to weed out the bad parts as best we can, right? But we don't have to cancel anybody out here. We should learn to live and let live. And the way you do that is to treat people as sovereign, autonomous individuals with dignity and self-respect. And that's, like I say, it's worked for me, and I'm sure it's probably worked for you in most relationships you've had. And I think most people, once they've listened to that articulated, they'll realize that is the way that we should properly deal with each other. So anyways, I know I kind of rambled on there, big, long rant.
That's okay. You're a guest here, by all means.
Thank you.
A lot of it's common sense. Basically,
I think so.
I've said.
I mean, it's a thing though, John. To you and I, here's the part where we have to get into the clarity of the language, right? To you and I, it sounds like common sense because I guess we still, in our brains and our minds, we still have that feeling of where it did seem to be common sense. The part that I would actually have to disagree with you here is actually it doesn't seem to be as common as we would like to hope, to be honest with you these days, John. And I wish it was only online, but even when I'm out in public, and I make it a point because I always want to test, is it just online? Am I just being manipulated that people are all authoritarian online, but people out in public are totally different? But I'm actually seeing quite a substantial replication and almost a mirror image out there in public as I'm seeing online, with the blind conformity, people hating on each other, people getting angry with each other for not being, conforming to these mask mandates and stuff, and constantly, looking to harm each other, ratting out their neighbors. It's just, to me, it's just unbelievable how this is all playing out. And like I say, I feel compelled that I get to, at least if I'm a voice out there and at least someone's giving me the ability to speak openly, I'm going to say what I can to at least push back against this stuff, because I know how detrimental it's going to be in the long run for even the people that are pushing it. They're going to suffer just as bad as the rest of us.
Oh, I concur. Yes. Big time. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, by all means, ask myself or ask Canadian Libertarian here. Please keep it clean, keep it sane, keep it civil.
Sure. Yeah,
we don't care if you drop an F-bomb or a C-bomb here. That's fine. Just no graphic content, please. Just keep it civil, ladies and gentlemen. And later on in the show, Fred Stockman's going to join us for a little chit-chat too. So you can have questions for myself, Canadian Libertarian, or for Fred. But in the meantime, we'll open up the floor to any questions, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, any question at all. There's nothing that I won't talk about.
Okay, from an Ivan Suchuk. He asks, why should he vote Libertarian?
Well, I would suggest that actually voting Libertarian isn't actually going to do a whole lot for you today. And neither is voting Conservative, neither is voting Liberal, neither is voting NDP, neither is voting Green, and neither is voting the PBC. And why? Because voting is just, I mean, if you think about it, and it's crazy how we're taught this thing that if you just show up, you check something on a box every few years, that somehow that's going to be some positive change or affect your culture in a positive way. It doesn't do anything. To tell you the truth, it's actually a complete farce if you think about it. I won't get down into the whole thing because I don't like to try to disenfranchise people from voting. But as far as I'm concerned, that old expression, if voting actually changed things, it would have been illegal, right? It kind of rings true because I've been alive 50 years, and of course I didn't watch when I was a little kid. But, when I was old enough to observe and learn and know that the politics actually played out and these kind of things happen, I watched over the entire course of my life, every cycle, right? Didn't pay attention to each cycle, but each cycle, that people on both sides of the political divide were, they want their freedoms and they want this and they want this thing. But what did we end up with? Constant voting for multiple generations and decades simultaneously, incongruent. And what have we ended up with? Way less freedoms today we've ever had. Actually, every time an election cycle goes through, we lose another little bit of our freedoms. So if voting is anything that you think is going to bring about any freedom, once again, where's the evidence? There's not one shred of evidence that anyone can ever offer me where voting actually is going to bring about freedom. And why that is because that's not how freedom works. Freedom, liberty, it's all here, folks. Liberty is a state of mind. If you're living around people, and we are, and this is an uncomfortable thing for all of us to accept, because the people that we're talking about, the people we're referencing are our family members, maybe coworkers, maybe neighbors. Nobody likes to deal with this. Maybe even someone that you call a friend, right? But secretly, behind closed doors when you're not around, maybe that friend, maybe that neighbor, maybe that coworker wants you to pay for some entitlement that they feel that the state should afford to them, right? They won't maybe tell you that in person, but at the ballot box, and when it's all secret and private, right? It's like, I want me some socialized whatever. I want me some free dental care. I want me some. So this is the problem, right? This is the major issue with voting is you're literally, and today voting, people are actually believe in their mind. That's the crazy part is people actually believe that they have a right. I am shocked every day that full-grown adults, because we are adults here, right? We're not talking about things, right? Full-grown adults believe that they have any legitimate authority to ask someone else to take money from, someone else in their community or their province or their locality or their country against their will, or that they have any authority to micromanage, dictate, or control every aspect of their social life. I don't know how we get this point other than the fact of collectivism. Collectivism is a term, and it's not a matter of, it's not the term collective. Collective is just a group of people, right? But collectivism is an ideology. And what collectivism does is it's the overarching ideology that suggests, and there's multiple iterations of it, democracy just being one, socialism, communism, fascism, all corporate. It all seeks to deny the individual. Any ideology, everyone, there's not one exception. Any ideology that seeks to deny the individual or put forth the pretense that the individual must be sacrificed for the greater good, that's the minute you know that tyranny, it's already at your front doors. Because what is the greater good? Well, it's whatever the person that's saying what the greater is. It's what they define in their mind as the greater good. Because I would define the greater good as not using force against. I mean, if you're using force, violence, and theft towards people, that's not a kind of, I don't consider that the greater good, to be honest with you. So I don't want to be part of the collective, or I don't want to sacrifice myself for people who want to steal or dictate and control every aspect of my social and economic life. I'm sorry if I don't want to be a conformist to the kind of people who do not respect my individuality or my freedoms. That's really what it comes down when it comes to voting at the end of the day is culture. We got to change the culture of this country. And until like before, because until you change the mindset of all those people among us, right? That 38% of the population or 39 that voted for Trudeau, right? And maybe who knows now, because there's not much in terms of offer. That's the thing that conservatives don't. We don't even have a conservative party in this country. It's a liberal right. So what do they have? What do people have on offer? They have basically nothing. So, matter of fact, Trudeau, he's probably feeling comfortable right now that if he called an election, and the reason why the Conservatives and NDippers, nobody's fighting for us because they probably think that actually he might even garner more support. So what this tells you is there's plenty of Canadians among us, plenty of them, right? They might not maybe necessarily be your neighbor, but they're in your jurisdiction, and by natural extension of democracy, they have the power and the so-called authority, although it's not legitimate, but because other people believe in the legitimacy of the state, they're given the ability to completely overrule and override your sovereignty, your autonomy, and your ability to live freely, and they can economically and socially enslave you as long as they get a large enough percentage. And it's not even the 50+1% in Canada. It's a plurality. Like I say, 38% of the people, and that, let me extrapolate to that even more, that 38% is only out of at the time was 24 or 26 million Canadians that voted, but there were still 10 or 11 million who didn't. So actually, if you take that and break it down, probably it's only about 21, 22%. So we live in a country, and this is what's happening. It's not just Canada. We're no exception. But democracy has created this atmosphere. We're now, it's gone on long enough. And once people realize that you can vote to steal and take other people's stuff and control them, well, now we're in the place where about 20% of the population has control over the rest of the 80%. And you're not getting out of it by voting because they have the power, they have the jurisdictions, they have, I mean, like I say, even down in the US, they're coming to this recollection, and this recognition is, it's not the voting, folks. It's you have to start to truly affect and change the culture of the kind of people that are living in your country. Because if you're living in people who are collectivists and who align with or conform with, collectivist policies or ideologies, like I say, you can't win in that race, not in a democracy.
I got another question here for you from Wickeder Than Now. Does non-aggression principle mean staying out of conflicts abroad? What happens if our allies are attacked? I can answer that too, but you go ahead there, Bennett.
Okay. Yeah. So the non-aggression principle is to not use preemptive force or violence. Now, obviously, right? Anyone, just like me, if I saw someone being gravely harmed by someone, and they were, they weren't fighting back, they were being bullied or picked on. I mean, it's up to any individual or any group if you want to come to the aid of others, But when you're talking about the state now, there's too much when you're talking about the state in terms of foreign conflicts. Matter of fact, Ron Paul is actually one of the ones that actually helped turn me on to understand this stuff, because even for people who do have a military mindset or come from a military background, you got to understand the whole point of what's the that word was right on the tip of my tongue, and I was just moral hazards, or no, there's another, no, not moral hazard. There was another. Anyways, let me just get to the point where constantly having these foreign conflicts, the founding fathers of the U.S. basically understood that if you don't get into entangling in alliances or foreign conflicts, and you just use trade, just like if you were as a person, just think of yourself as a person, right? Is if you don't get yourself into entangling alliances and you just trade voluntarily with people, you have less chance that people are going to want to attack or harm you. But if that ever does come to you, of course, that's the point of the militia. And that was the point when the U.S. set it up. Not a standing army, because a standing army can turn inwards and become oppressive as well. But to have militias and people who have the fortitude and the ability and the competence to defend themselves against any foreign threat. And I mean, they did. I mean, if you haven't watched, I think it's actually on, was it on Netflix right now? The Patriot, Mel Gibson, right? The whole, right? Remember the whole Patriot thing, right? So I mean, that's the thing. The militias, ragtag bunch of militias, sent King George and with the help of some French, mind you, but sent King George and his boys, right, a packing, right? So it shows what you really need at the end of the day is people who are willing to stand in defiance of authoritarianism, totalitarianism, and in defense of those who are seeking to be free, right? But when you're talking about governments, then you're talking about they're all seeking. Governments all seek to use force. So just because another government in some foreign country is using force on other people, right? Well, so is our own country. And is it actually a benefit? That's the other thing. Was it a benefit to go into Iraq? I would suggest, and a lot of people would suggest that maybe not. Matter of fact, maybe if Saddam had been around, right,
I don't think it was too. I think it was, and not to disenfranchise my my American friends that I've talked to about combat and what have you. But in the same sense, when you look at the broad term of it now, and the amount of people that were killed in that conflict on both sides, what was the benefit from it? Okay, you got Saddam, you got rid of a little tyrant. Okay, great, a little tyrant. He was no Hitler, he was no Stalin, he was no Pol Pot. Okay, he had his issues. Yeah, he killed a lot of his own people, But I don't think the welfare of North America as we see it was going to be compromised if he reigned power in Iraq, if he went to war again with Iran, or even Kuwait for that matter. We all know it was an oil racket, an oil market. Okay, because the state of Texas and California alone could support a lot of oil from the United States. Alberta and Saskatchewan could support a lot of oil for Canada, but we don't see it that way, or we're told not to see it that way. So to answer Wickeder Now's question, my piece on this is that, let's say if we'd have a libertarian government in Canada where people were allowed to save their money, do what they wanted to do with the simple reasons of don't break the law, don't hit people, take their stuff, fine. And if an ally called us for an assistance because someone's knocking their door who represents or who is similar to what Adolf Hitler was or Joseph Stalin was, then that'd be a different story. But if they wanted to get involved in some little South African nation or South American nation or any other nation just to play the biggest kid in the block, no, there's no need for it. It's one thing having a robust military that can go at a moment's notice. It works for the Australians. It should work for Canadians too. But up here, because of my experience, we don't have that ability. So with my libertarian points of view, stay the hell out of it and mind your own damn business.
Yeah, I agree, Chris.
Really, have the ability to fight if we needed to.
Yeah.
Like say if the onslaught's coming from the Arctic or come from the Pacific or the Atlantic, fine. Have the ability to defend ourselves accordingly.
All right.
And then once the shots are fired, then okay, gloves are off. Here we go. It's that simple. Doesn't matter who has a rocket. Doesn't matter who has a ship. Get it out of there. But when it comes to running a democracy, mind our own damn business. If we have a trade deal with some little country and they have a history of doing something tyrannical, well, that's a matter of ethics too. That's not a matter of aggression. For the longest time, Canada traded with South Africa during the years of apartheid when it came to gold and diamonds. Okay, so the United States, yet they still had a heinous system where they were carding people over and over again. They still did it until apartheid changed. Okay, great. Now you had government officials that protested and said, look, we got to stop this. But who are we to sit there and dictate to what a country does? Let's look after our own, really. And look after your friends and neighbors in a community sense, by all means. But if someone wants to do something, okay, then we decide on our ethics. Don't threaten invasion or threaten tyranny, waving the flag. It doesn't matter what country you're in. History has proven otherwise. That's one of the reasons why the British Empire failed and the French Empire, the Spanish Empire went broke. So it speaks for itself. So let's see. We got another question here from Oh My God Push-Ups. Question is, who's going to be the one enforcing the gun grab and what's the consequences of that? That's still up in the air from what I've gathered. Bennett, what do you say about that?
Well, this is another one of those uncomfortable things and why I tend to not have the most amazing relationship with those in law enforcement. And for a reason is because I have to be honest, folks. And this is the thing. You can hate on me. You can despise me. You can love me all you want. Whatever. It'll slide on my back because it is what it is. But listen, this is the thing. Whether you come from the right or left, this is a problem with today. And I, even as a young man growing up, I've watched such drastic changes of what the police were even considered. Like the culture has shifted. I remember as a young man, whether it was two guys in a fight, a domestic dispute, maybe some guy drunk out of his tree in his car. I remember peace officers where they would actually, and they were always part, this is the other thing that I will say, they were always part of the community. They were people that were born, raised, and lived in the communities that they were these peace officers. So they had an incentive not to be the bully because they had to live, they had to go to church, they had to go to the shopping, to go to the grocery store, right? So today you're not seeing that, but this is the thing is they've gone from the idea of a peace officer to now you hear the way the reference law enforcement, right? And law enforcement. So now you're not looking at someone that's looking to be the arbiter, to keep the peace, to be the referee. Because to me, that's ideally in a free, prosperous, peaceful society, you definitely want people who, whether you want to call them police officers or just arbiters or peace officers, whatever the hell you want to call them, but you definitely want people who have the competence and the ability to step up and to try to resolve disputes as best they can, or to help come to the defense and protect those who are vulnerable against people who are trying to impose themselves on them, right? So we definitely want them. But when you're talking about enforcement, this is the thing where you're changing things from where the state is supposed to be there solely, and the whole point and premise of the state is solely to be the protector of those inherent and inalienable rights and freedoms.
Mhm.
Whereas now is no longer the protector. The state now and the actors of the state, the enforcers of the state, have been taught and trained seemingly to perceive as the people as the enemy, and that they must maintain all these the myriad of rules, laws, and regulations on the book, to such a degree that they're actually causing way more harm than they're doing good to society, which is turning more and more people. And I'm actually surprised to see today that even some conservatives are coming around and recognizing this stuff. And I suppose in the age where you have this right in your face in video terms, right, you can't deny this stuff anymore. There's a lot of people, and that's the thing. Once you've changed the environment, the atmosphere, and the very premise of what these duties are, because once again, of course, even myself, if today, if there was only a minimum amount of laws where you just, hey, if somebody's stealing from someone, try to prevent that theft or go investigate that theft. I might even want to do something like that. But I will personally say I would never become a cop today, ever. Because I've seen the millions of laws. That means to be a cop today means I have to go fuck with all my Canadian peeps, people that I have respect for, people that aren't actually even causing harm to people, right? Maybe people, think about people like even Bill Blair, right? How many people that guy put away for smoking marijuana and stuff. And meanwhile, then him and like the other guy, another police chief there in Ontario, are all getting into the drug trade and into these cannabis corporations. And this is what I mean. So once you've created people who are willing to follow orders, and we've seen this. Rebel Media, I was watching a Rebel Media video once again, where this guy was in a Montreal. I don't know if you've seen that one yet, but this guy's in a Montreal, one of those quarantine hotels, right? Which don't exist. Remember Trudeau? Everyone that said that these.
Oh yeah, it's all a conspiracy.
All a conspiracy.
Your imagination.
But now they're all reporting on them. It's like, really? Nothing like that's what they call the kids today. They call it gaslighting, where you're like, they're telling you you're looking at exactly what you're seeing, but they're telling you, no, you're not seeing that. It's like, that's fucked up shit, man. That's some psychological manipulation to the nth degree, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, here was this guy, and he was standing, and he had his phone recording it, and he's telling this guy that runs the hotel that was blocking him from leaving. He's saying, I'm going to leave. And the guy said, no, you can't. The health authority said you're not allowed to leave. He said, yeah, but dude, have you ever heard of the Charter rights?
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to be in my freedoms. I'm not supposed. No, health official said that. More or less just repeating that same fucking shit, which drives me crazy with that. I'm just following orders. And this is the part that drives me nuts. And that's one thing where I will say I have a little bit more respect for people that do have at least a military background, because they at least perceive, usually it's the threat is foreign. The police of today are perceiving as the threat is domestic. It's the citizens. They're perceiving. It's like, wait a minute. Like I say, once you've trained an entire gang or collective of people who now perceive as just they have to follow orders, right? Like I say, actually, let me just bring this up, because I put this actually in a note, because I wanted to mention this to you, and I'll mention this on a couple other streams too. I think for those of us who are in the social media realm and have influence, I was thinking, if we get a bunches together, we should set up a little, like we're not actors or anything, but I like we have to step outside and just talk about this stuff. I don't know if you would want to get involved, but I was thinking, if we set up a little like a mock Nuremberg trial type of thing, but rather than dealing with the Nazis and Hitler and all that shit and how that played out, let's do like a mock up, but COVID, right? Let's do it. Yeah. This is the Nuremberg trials post-COVID in 2025, and do a little mock-up, because people need to understand, and especially those who are out there who are enforcing these illegal, unconstitutional mandates and edicts, is a lot of people, and apparently not enough people have been teaching them, is you can no longer, right? That excuse was thrown by the wayside, during the Nuremberg trials, when all these people were saying, well, why were you loading, right, all these men and women and children on the boxcars? Didn't you know that it was bad?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I was just following orders. But once again, that excuse, and I don't know how people aren't today out there emphasizing the importance of, you cannot give anyone the excuse to say, because the guy on this video was saying, it's not me. You have to tell the health authority. Meanwhile, the guy's saying, yeah, but you're the one standing right here blocking me to get the fuck out of this hotel.
Exactly.
But the guy kept saying, it's not me, it's the health authority. Yeah. It's like, dude, how do you not recognize? How fucked is your brain? How indoctrinated into this cult of statism do you have to be, where you're willing to say to the guy, I'm keeping you here, but it's not me, it's someone else telling me to do it? That's fucking possession of some sort. Like I say, that's a cult, man. Statism is a cult. I've seen it my whole life. All these people that have it. And once again, even though you yourself, you come from a military background, I don't even if you come from like work for the function of the state, at least if you're a reasonable human being and like yourself, and you don't talk in such a way, I have total like, hey, listen, I recognize that people have different positions and status and histories, and I won't blame. I deal with people as individuals, and to me, it has nothing to do with if you were. I'm not going to say everyone that has a military or police background are all bad people, but once the military, and I'm sure when you were in the military, John, I mean, you might have had to probably do a few things that maybe you weren't, but things were probably not on the same scale or level then as they are today in terms of what they're expecting.
I would say maybe
right?
some discomfort, but not to a point where I had to question my ethics or question
Right.
And lawfully speaking, I had every right to, as a member of the Canadian Forces, if I was given an order that I deemed to be unethical or unsafe, I had every right to question it. And that
Yeah.
was also based on what happened during World War II in Korea and
Right.
other missions well before my time in the service.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up, John. Could you explain that to me? I'm glad you brought that up. Very thankful because, yes, I've actually talked to a few other military guys in the past. I'm surprised I haven't asked this, but yeah. So that's like I say, I don't have any military experience myself, but I would suggest, yes, when you're signing up in the military, there has to be something, right? Some oath of honor that you have to take that says that you're to defend like the Canadian people and their rights and all that, like, right? So there has to be something in there that at least gives you, like a plausible reason and an excuse to not follow an authoritarian mandate.
Well, here's an example that I can give you. See, okay, we were trained to learn how to take out a trench, do a section attack, fire movement, all that good stuff. Okay. You get into the enemy trench, you kill the enemy.
Right.
And then you consolidate there after the battle, after the firefight. Now, if I had a lieutenant or a senior sergeant or a senior warrant officer telling me, okay, you killed him, I want you to cut off his head too. Why? He's dead. Really? Why take his ears? Why? Like, that's just being barbaric. Okay. We could question things like that too. If it came to aid to civil power, okay, we are working with the police services because there's a giant riot or something going on, or there's some kind of dismay where the governing bodies need our help. Fine. Even that we'd have to question. Say if I'm working with a police officer and he says, okay, I want you to arrest this girl and take your baton and give her a good lesson. How is that ethical? Right? She's already detained. He's detained, whatever. They're not causing any harm. Put him in the rear. Let the paddy wagon take him if in case of that. They would go through with us that very stringently, like a fine-tooth comb, what we can do and not do, because not only are we helping the authorities out in a time of crisis, we are still ambassadors to our brand. So we still have to maintain that certain professional courtesy and respect for our fellow citizens. Oh my God, push-ups. Who would be enforcing the gun grab and what's the consequence of that? It depends because they want to pass it to municipalities, but then the municipalities are going, well, we have gun clubs in this area that are good. We have people that are good. In my area, I would highly doubt that the mayor is going to sit there and say, okay, we're going to ban handguns too. Because the majority of people that I know in this town are gun collectors and hunters and sport shooters, aficionados. So if they're going to sit there and do that, they're going to think twice the next election when it comes to the municipal elections here. Who are they going to put in? If I don't do so well as a member of the VCP party, I'm definitely going to throw my hat in municipal elections too, right? Because I'm willing to take that responsibility and have that power and ensure that people are safe by their own means. I don't care who owns a gun. I don't care who has this. As long as you're not hearing people taking their stuff, hey, we're good to go. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question there. Oh my God, push-ups. Please, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any more questions for myself or Mr. Bennett Hunter, the Canadian Libertarian, please feel free. Remember, keep it clean, keep it civil, and keep it real. We don't care if you drop an F-bomb or a C-bomb, whatever. And if you want to reach Bennett Hunter, you can find him on the YouTube channel under Canadian Libertarian. Please ask him anything you want to know about liberty, politics, his life, his outlook, everything you want to know.
I just want to, something I wrote down there, John, just because I think this is a really important thing. And it's just, and when I say these things, once again, it's never to, even if I decry some of the things in Christianity when I was a young man, some of the things that didn't make sense. It's never, like I say, I'm not the kind of person that's advocating let's tear down the system or I'm just saying, to me, what I've always done and what I do for people is clarity of thought, clarity of language, gives me clarity of mind and gives me a way to think. So to me, I want to be as honest and forthright with people, because at least if they have the right knowledge, right, then they have the basis to start forming proper opinions rather than basing their perspectives on ideologies or whether they align with one side of the political spectrum or the other. So I just, like I say, I just wrote this down because to me, this is the most important thing. I think that people, if you want to change the culture, folks, this is really how it's done. At the core, the root of all major issues and problems societies are dealing with today is statism. The belief in authority is what causes people to stop thinking for themselves or holding any genuine principles to guide their decisions. And once enough people have legitimized that authority, it becomes the new dominant method of control and dictating human action, both socially and economically. And you got to remember, folks, the state is force. Now, what I also put in this as a follow-up is Christianity and the free market and free market capitalism gave us the ability to deal with each other peacefully and voluntarily while respecting each other as unique individuals who are all God's children. The belief in statism has supplanted that, and now force and division are the go-to methods used by far too many people. So that's the thing about Christianity. And once again, where I bring all this stuff together was I think back because I was raised in a religious family. And once again, I'm not a mystic. I don't believe in some of the, the crazy stuff like the 40 days, 40 nights. I get that these are grand narratives and metaphorically speaking, meta stories. That's what they're for. But they're meant to teach us really, really valuable lessons. And I hold these things dear. And the one thing I've always understood is we, as humans, of course, we need authority. We have to have something to guide us in how we deal with each other socially or economically. And like I say, geniuses in the past, and many people have died fighting for these ideas, right? But that was the thing, go back 800 years from Magna Carta under the British monarchy, all the way up to modern day today, in advanced Western societies and capitalism under the US and the Constitution and all that. And you're talking, like I say, basically most of the hard work of figuring out how we can, as human beings, live, cohabitate, and coexist peacefully among each other, even with people that you might not necessarily like, even if you don't like your neighbor at all, even if you loathe your neighbor. What we have figured out is we have the formula. Like the Christianity brings the morals and the ethics, and capitalism, by sheer fact that it's free market, nobody can force each other. And the only reason why a transaction actually takes place is because it's voluntarily. Those two aspects is what made the West so great and gave us so much, not just in terms of our economic prosperity, but what historically used to be, our social prosperity. Because like I said, in the past, and when I was growing up, it was quite normal for most people not even to lock their doors. Like there was a lot more community, people that were taking care of each other because the state wasn't stepping in to do that. And there's something that makes a person feel really good when you do it yourself, right? When you step up and voluntarily do something for someone else, that gives you something that, checking a box and saying, here, you take care of that. That's not never going to give you anything. It's not going to give you any self-respect, no dignity or self-esteem. This is like I say, most of that hard work has already been done by some amazing figures in the past. And what I want is not only do I not want to tear it down, I want to build upon that. I want to help maybe do even better if we possibly can, right? Advance those amazing ideas forward into the 21st century. And I believe in the West with Canada and our southern neighbors, the type of history that we have, this is our opportunity. Let's not fuck this up, folks, because this shit does not come along, right? Gutenberg press happened one time and it had a profound effect on Europe and the West at that time. We have it today. We have the Gutenberg on press with the internet age. We have the information age. Let's take full advantage of this and get this kind of information out to people. And once again, not to tear down the state, not to go and attack police officers, not to verbally assault or harm like people that had military
cancel people like they're doing.
Exactly. It's just let's talk to each other, right? Let's fucking talk to each other. Can we please? Where the media and the political class are constantly, screaming past each other. Let's do what me and John are doing today, right? Me and John come from two totally different backgrounds. Maybe in real life, maybe we made him never cross paths normally. I don't care. I think John's a very respectable man. Don't care what the hell, what skeletons he may have in his past. Hey, we're all fallible human beings. That's the other thing. We've all made mistakes. We're all fallible, right? It's who are you today? What are you advancing? What are the ideas? what kind of a person are you today, right? And what kind of person are you wanting to be tomorrow? That's what matters to me. John is the kind of guy that suggests to me is someone that's looking out there to fight for freedom like I am. And so to me, I don't, like I say, wouldn't even matter if he's black, white, pink, gray, military. I don't give a shit. All I care about is, will you respect my freedom? I'll respect yours. And if we can get to that point and we can just keep expanding that out to as many of our fellow Canadian citizens as we can, there's always going to be some who won't. But if we can at least get the bulk, we don't need the state. We got each other.
Exactly. Well, Dave Hemington says his gun club runs a fish hatchery and stocks thousands of fish here in Georgia Bay. I've actually heard of that too. When I was living in that area, that was quite the knowledgeable fact too. Money from that comes from handgun members. Yeah, because I know every range you got to pay your fees every year. And hunters do more conservation than Trudeau ever think of. And you've nailed it in the head there, Dave, especially because every gun club that I've been part of, there's always that step of conservation. Every hunt club I've inquired to, a step of conservation. Because yes, it's not the fact of having targets to shoot every fall or every moose season or deer season or bear season. It's a matter of respecting the balance of nature. And I'm sure we all get that from the native elders who showed the first settlers that since North America's inception, right? And everything when it comes to conservation in this country is, as far as I'm concerned, is everyone's responsibility. We can learn from each other when it comes to that, when it comes to water tables and fish tables. Okay. Right now, the Liberal government is still standing fast by how they can drop raw sewage into the St. Lawrence, into Victoria Harbor and parts of the Great Lakes. And yet they don't want oil to come and contaminate things, which to me is a total joke. How are you going to be conserving the environment if you're dumping poop into a St. Lawrence Seaway? That's more permanent than an oil spill. An oil spill you can pick up. It might take a month. Look what happened to the Exxon Valdez off Alaska. Yes, some animals were killed, but they cleaned that up in a record time. Think of the technology they have now when it comes to any kind of oil spill or any kind of catastrophe. Raw sewage is a biohazard, and that's permanent. So good point there, Dave. Thanks for bringing it to attention.
Can I just say something real quick there, John? I just got to say, because, especially when you're talking about gun owners and hunters, someone from New Brunswick, rural New Brunswick, been around them, large percentage of my life. And I got to tell you, these are, for the most part, there's always outliers and exceptions. But yeah, for the most part, hunters and people that actually go out and hunt for themselves, and they are the most respectable to nature. You want to talk about, that's the thing. You want to talk about people who are respectable to nature. That,
oh God, wow. Yes, I know a couple of trappers.
Some of these liberals up there in Toronto, just go out, just take them out there sometime, and they'd be like, "Damn, now you want to talk about environmentalists and people who care about nature, right? You're talking about a hunter. I mean, these are people that put a lot of work and effort into not just disturbing the state of nature, but making sure that when they do, like they want to kill that moose or that deer in the most painless and humane way humanly possible. They're not going to waste any of that food is going to be very plentiful, and it's going to take care of their entire family and maybe other people in the community, because that's what I see a lot of times too, and especially in these small rural communities, where not everyone gets their hunting license. Well, if the guy gets himself a big 900-pound moose or whatever, and he only needs 300 or 400 pounds for himself, I've seen many times, he's got a neighbor that's poor as freaking church mouth, right?
Food bank, for that matter.
I've seen exactly the food bank. Yeah. So I have a tremendous amount of respect, and these are the people that take that onus, that responsibility on themselves, right? So never. That's my whole thing, and especially when you're talking, no matter if you're talking about gun people, hunters, is just don't judge a book by its. Get to learn at least the person as an individual, which is why I don't care for collective and this identity politics bullshit, anyways. Because once again, I like to deal with people as individuals.
Exactly. No, well said. Well said there, Bennett. Kiprioth, food for thought. How would it be illegal for the municipality or a province to dictate firearm laws, considering the Firearms Act is a federal act and the process of licensing is a federal process? Well, that's the thing they tried to with C-21, because they just gave us all a word salad. They make it sound like they're just going to throw the responsibility down to everybody else without actually passing the legislation in the House. Now, it's tabled. We know that. And the parliamentary process, we all know how it works. They have to table something. The senator's got to look at it. this party's got to look at it. We all know how Le Bloc wants to say, yes, do it, whatever. And the NDP are the same way. They're creaming their jeans about guns. But luckily enough, there is still a conservative opposition that's dead against it, i.e. Shannon Stubbs, Pierre Poilievre, even Mr. O'Toole himself has said some wonderful things. I hope that answers your question there, Kip. To make a long story short, I don't see the municipalities really getting a hard-on for it other than Toronto or Montreal. But rural areas like, say, New Brunswick, Alberta, BC, where there's a lot of gun activity, i.e. hunters, sport shooters, collectors, and aficionados all together, But joining us shortly, Fred Stockman, he's on standby right now. So if you want to add something to this there, Bennett, to Kipriot's statement, and thank you very much, Kipriot, for the $10 donation. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. And if you feel like donating, by all means, please donate. You can reach me through crustycanuck.ca, donate to my links there, and or you can join the sticker page, become a member of the YouTube page. Just click on join. You can choose from any tiers there. Later on, I'll have some incentives for some of my subscribers, and I'm still working on a hockey jersey too. So pay attention to my community page and Facebook for that too. So let's see here. So right now joining us is Fred Stockman, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Fred, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Nice to meet you, Fred.
Hey, nice to meet you too. Congratulations, by the way, on running for office. It's pretty cool.
Office? Me?
Myself or for Bennett?
Oh, are you running for office or no?
Oh, I will be, yeah, once we get the call.
John, okay, sorry.
If they call a federal election up here, I'm putting my hat in under the VCP banner. So.
Oh, okay, sorry, I wasn't aware of that. I thought he was talking.
Yeah. I have no idea what's going on in Canada right now. Everything.
See, that's the thing with a lot of Americans. They think they know. They don't know. And not to insult my American listeners and friends out there, but But anyway, please, Fred, introduce yourself again. You were on a show last week to fill in for Mr. Bennett there because we had a change around in schedule. So please just reintroduce yourself again, Fred, to the audience here.
Yeah, I'm a YouTuber. I'd say populist, Western civilizationist at heart, all that sort of thing. Yeah, so West is the best. Get here, we'll do the rest. So
well said. Well said. Yeah, we're just discussing the whole basic liberty and basic gun laws.
I was watching the gun grab thing.
Oh, what a shit show!
Right now.
Let me just ask you a question there, Fred. Have you? Sounds like, are you from Australia?
Family's from New Zealand.
New Zealand, okay. In New Zealand, or even down, even if you know anyone from down under, does anyone ever talk about the philosophy of liberty or libertarian? Do they ever use that terminology down?
There is a libertarian party in Australia.
Oh, there is.
Or I think I don't know if it's official yet, but I know there's like remnants of it. But there is like a couple there's a party called A1 that's pretty cool.
Right on.
I like them. Yeah, they're kind of like really liberty minded. Ricardo Bossi, the guy that runs it, is a former SAS. He loves Australia. That's a cool party. You should look them up. They're interesting. They have some good ideas.
So do you have some questions about liberty, or sorry, John, you were going to say something there. Sorry,
go ahead. I'm just doing a plug for the show here. So by all means,
go ahead. No, go right ahead. There's your show.
I was saying, if you got any questions for Fred and Bennett and myself, please don't be shy, ladies and gentlemen. Ask away. So keep it clean, though. Drop a C-bomb, F-bomb, whatever, but keep it clean. You were saying, Fred?
The Canadian Libertarian Party or something like that?
Pardon me, sorry?
Are you like a high up member in the Canadian Libertarian Party?
No, I'm not a part of any party. I'm close friends with the leader of the Libertarian Party and quite a few of the people who are part of the party. Actually, if you were even to talk to Tim Owen, he's the leader of the Libertarian Party of Canada, he would probably be telling you'd be probably a little shocked to learn that he'd be telling you that politics is downstream of culture. Don't worry about it. Well, what it is obviously politics. That's the thing. We live in a democracy, so is politics obviously going to have a role? Yes, but when the bulk or the majority of the citizens in your country don't respect your sovereignty and liberty, a libertarian party, it's like kind of useless at this point. It's good to have, right? It's good to have it have it there just in case, right? In case of people actually caring about liberty, break glass, right? But at this point, most people who are either part and parcel of the Libertarian Party, or even people like myself. Now, I do definitely support the party, and you know, in terms of if you know, election was called, I would definitely be voting for the party. But once again, we all kind of recognize that its culture is what we got to shift here, because just checking that box once in a while it's not going to do anything for us in terms of bringing about freedom and liberty. We have to really affect and change the culture, and the people who have been in these positions who are supposed to be doing this job obviously have been falling asleep at the wheel, apparently, because nobody seems to adhere, understand, or even know what the hell freedom even means these days. Because like I say, whether I'm talking about people in person or people on social media, I'm constantly hearing the rhetoric of people, and they think their virtue signal is, please take away my freedoms. Right? It's like, do you not get how this works?
Yes, dirty government, please take away all of my freedoms right now.
Yes. and it's
speak unwell. Do not let me own firearms. Do not let me not let my house be opened in by the government. Do not let them come in.
Well, see what it suggests to me, and you got to think the kind of people who are willing to put up with this stuff, and the people who are willing to put this out, is there's a lot of really damaged people in this country. And not just this country, but I'm sure all of our countries
across the Western world, mate.
Yes, it's across the Western world. And why it is the Western world, it's no coincidence, right? There is no coincidence the fact that, you know, the minute people have turned and pivoted away from God as being our authority and universal ethics and morality, the minute you pivot away from that and you place your faith in the state or human beings, right? Because once again, we're all human beings and we can all be good people, but we also have the ability and are susceptible to doing some really fucking bad things too, right? So the minute you turned and pivoted and have granted other human beings this kind of authority over people, well, it is literally, I mean, it's just a matter of time. I mean, very few times, there's never actually no time in history, and usually it's 150 to 200 years, do you ever get to the point where you place this kind of authority in the hands of other human beings where it doesn't ultimately break down in complete strife and civil conflict? I mean, that, of course, right? Just like what I like to do is, because people don't like to think in grand narratives. So I say, break that down to your fucking family. If your mother and father raised you and everything that they did is might makes right and force was their means to an end, what kind of kid, what kind of family do you think you're going to end up with? You might end up with one that's just a basket case that's so abused that they don't even know how to navigate or function in life. But you also might have someone like who realize that, well, I got to replicate that. If I'm going to gain advantage in this zero-sum game, well, I have to use force, because if I'm not doing it, well, they're going to be doing it to me. So I better do it first, right? And that's once you start down that road where force is your means to an end, which is what government is. Government is force, right? The people in government are given these so-called authorities that none of us have. And I have explained this a multitude of times. And for anyone that's watching the stream, let me just explain this to you in real simple terms, that it's not me trying to trick you. I would just ask you, and I use these questions to anyone that tries to question the legitimacy of the state. I would say, I'm a human being, do I have any authority to dictate and control any aspect of your social life? Well, no, I have no authority to do. Do I have any authority to take any portion of your income or your wealth against your will without your express or implied permission? Of course not. And everyone I've ever met would all say, no, Bennett, you have no authority. You have no right to do that. Bar none. Everyone has all said that. But somehow they believe that if I check a box, I can somehow delegate an authority that I don't have to another human being by magic, right? This is the part that drives me nuts, is we live in the 21st century where we got Elon getting ready to send, a spaceship to Mars here soon, and we still have an entire population mostly comprised of people in all of our countries that believe that people have the authority to dictate and control and steal from other people. I mean, when you live in that kind of a society or that kind of setup, of course, you're going to degrade into what we currently function in today, which is why, to me, and I keep pointing this out, it's not about picking up the guns. It's not about revolution. It's about getting people's minds up to speed so they at least have a grasp or an understanding of what it is to be free. Because if a person doesn't know what it is to be a free human being, they're not going to know how it is to fight for it or what it is to defend it. Right?
Now my question I have for you is, because I have kind of like walked away from like libertarianism because I think it's too cowardly. Do you really think that libertarians?
Cowardly?
Yeah, because
Really?
libertarians in America don't do anything. They just kind of like they go up in like Congress, right? Like Rand Paul or whatever. And I think he's got some good ideas, but they never fight for you. They just all they do is they're just a thorn in your ass, really.
Oh, that's not cowardly. Well, I will say, but you're absolutely right. Yes, libertarians
Don't fight.
100%. No, but I will. No, but I'm going to deal with what you're saying 100%. But I will admit, like for me, I'm definitely not a coward. Never been a coward in my life. Fuck anyone that's ever fucked me, and you'll find it. But what it is yeah, I don't look to cause harm to someone until they're trying to cause harm to me. But I'm also smart enough to realize that if I walked it, like now, if there's one guy and he's fucking with me, or even two and they're not too big, maybe. But if I'm downtown Yonge Street in Bloor and there's 10 of them, I'm all by myself, I got no weapons, and one hand tied behind my back, I'm smart enough that I'll live to walk away and fight another day. It's not that libertarians are cowards, it's just that no one wants to be martyrs to die for what? A bunch of statists that don't care about our freedoms. What the hell? No thanks. Right? That's the issue. Is not that is we're doing what it is Elon Musk, he's a libertarian. Peter Thiel, he's a libertarian. What it is there's lots of genius libertarians that are just finding ways where we can escape, right? Instead of fighting the state, I can just vacate. And actually, about 90% of my life right now, I can vacate it entirely. I'm just waiting for the rest of the geniuses and entrepreneurs to get that last 10%. And like I said, what do I need them for? And once we get to the point where you can just, the emperor has no clothes. Yeah, you go on and say whatever you want there, emperor, right? It's not cowardly. It's just what's some old frail piece of crap. What it is there's too many order followers. That's what we realize as libertarians, is the people who are part and parcel of the state, right? And this is true. This is the fact. Is if we perceive that there was a percentage of the population who are the enforcers of the state were willing to defend our freedoms, we'd be all on board. We'd be all, matter of fact, liberty would exist. But we're not seeing that, right? So we're very observant. We're wise. We learn from, that's the thing. You're talking about people who are really good thinkers and problem solvers for the most part, and not suicidal either. So I would say, no, I'm not saying that actually libertarians, because we're all individuals. So some libertarians are probably cowardly. As a matter of fact, there are some libertarians, and these people kind of make me sick, that want to be libertarians because they see that, I can do whatever the hell I want as long as I don't use force. So just evil or bad people.
I'm not a fan of that.
Right? Yeah. Those people just want to be heathens and fucking losers, and right? Okay, don't care for those people either, right? Right. So that's the thing. There are individuals, but the libertarians, that the ones like people like myself, I can speak for myself. I won't speak for anyone else. So I'll speak for myself and just leave everyone else to do their own thing. But for me, yeah. So what I've been saying is not cowardly, it's just that there's not much good in trying to start a fight when you're like two guys up against an entire. You can, right? I suppose. But like I say, it just doesn't seem to be a wise thing to do, other than to be a martyr, right? I don't know, but
that's McCulloch has a question. What is liberalism when liberty is considered a right-wing ideal?
What is liberalism?
Isn't anymore.
Yeah, liberalism is a dead word as far as I'm concerned, especially the brand that's been presented to us since 2015. They're not like liberals like they were when I was a kid or when Bennett was a kid. There's nothing liberal about it. Yeah, you're liberal as long as you think and walk and talk like us. If you agree with our hate speech mandates and our power of thought mandates and our environmental mandates, then you're liberal. But you disagree with us, you're either misogynist, you're either a fascist, you're either a Nazi, or whatever buzzword of the day is too. Liberty is a word where liberalism comes from. Does it not? Live and let live. I don't care what you do with your life. I don't care what you smoke. I don't care what you put in your body. I don't care how you dress. I don't care how you identify. Just don't hit people, take their stuff.
Yeah. Well, actually, a classical liberal from, let's say, the 17th and 18th century, or even real early 19th century, I'd say more or less 17th or 18th. And a libertarian would be, it's the same. It'd be no different than, well, actually, a classical liberal is basically aligned with, if you were to say a big L libertarian, a political libertarian, in terms of the U.S. So limited, minimal role for the state, all that stuff.
Mhm.
So the ideas of liberalism is completely conducive with libertarianism. It's just once again is the ideas were good, and at the time, right? Understandable. If you want to get out from underneath monarchs and stuff, democracy at that time, and for most people, especially if you had at least a decently well-educated populace, which was conducive with the West, in the 17th, 18th century and the industrial era and all that stuff. But once again, we're not talking about these liberalism. I wouldn't reject liberalism. Liberalism is actually very conducive with what the libertarian thought is. But the problem is they've always left all these ideas have always left this little escape clause, right? And even the Canadian Charter of Rights. This is the problem with the kind of people who seek to be your authority. Even the great message and the narrative that they put forth and present sounds good in theory, but if any time there's a disclaimer or an exemption or an exception where you leave the ability for someone to override or ignore your inherent or inalienable rights or freedoms, like in Canada, for example, is our Charter of Rights, right? It says we have all these rights. And it even says on there, right, the supremacy of God, right? The supremacy of law and God. But then they got down there, was it clause, section, whatever is the notwithstanding clause. So you have all these rights, but government pretends that they can take them away arbitrarily because they have this notwithstanding clause. Well, once someone is set up in any construct where they have given themselves a jail-free card or the ability to completely ignore or override your rights, well, then there's no pretense that they actually respect them as rights, because rights, just as I was sharing on the Canadian Constitutional Foundation's website this morning, I was watching a video actually of this is the Canadian Constitutional Foundation. This is the epicenter of people who are supposed to be fighting for our freedom. And not even one of those people are willing to stand up and say these things. They keep bringing up notwithstanding clause. And the part that drives me nuts about this is just look it up. Don't go by me. Just type in your fucking Google or your DuckDuckGo or whatever your search engine is. Just type in or pick up a dictionary. I got a few of them here. They're not that hard to find. And look up what inalienable or inherent means, right? The minute someone suggests that you can take away something that's inalienable or inherent, well, that's an oxymoron. That's a contradiction in terms. That is someone saying up is down and left is right. I mean, what do you do in this situation?
How many fingers am I holding up?
Right,
4 or 5. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So that's the part, and no wonder not just Canadians, Americans. Well, I mean, at least the Americans have it written properly. The one thing that keeps America, and it will be the only country left on this planet when all this collectivism, the only place that's going to be that shine beacon, and the only reason why it's going to be is not because the people are any better, but we're pretty closely aligned. We got a lot of shared history and background. It's the ideas espoused in their constitution. It's the fact that they've been taught from very young ages that their rights, their Second Amendment, their First Amendment, in the U.S., there's no such thing as hate speech laws. They laugh at the fact that in the rest of our countries that we have these things like
go to California, New York.
They're putting that in states right now, Bennett, in regards to
individual
hate speech.
states' laws. It's not. Not a
they are doing that. I'm afraid. Not.
Oh yeah, well, at the state level that could happen for sure. But I'm saying like federally, as the emphasis of what the federal government. No, there's nobody in the U.S. that thinks that the federal government, other than a bunch of people that just want to ignore the fact that these things are enshrined. But most Americans realize that their freedom of speech is part and parcel of what it is to be American. And just as important, and maybe even more importantly, is the Second Amendment, right? Without the Second Amendment, and every American that's worth their salt and understands what the founding fathers were doing at the time is like, without the Second Amendment, none of your other rights matter. They don't mean anything, right? If you give your authority all the guns and you're left helpless and defenseless, you can pretend that you have rights, but no, they're going to be the ones that are going to dictate and determine that, right?
Because it's funny you say that. Look at the old European model, like continental Europe. I saw a really interesting video from Sargon of Akkad.
He's pretty good, huh? I like Sargon.
He's interesting. And Daisy Cousins, they were talking about like if it was the darkest timeline thing. It was a really interesting video she did, but they had like a follow-up to it and they were having a chat about it. And he basically made a really interesting point about like how continental Europe has had a lot of dictators over the years. You know, you've had your Hitlers, you had your Mussolinis, and your Napoleons. You've had your various monarchs across Europe, all that stuff. Notice the very big difference between the Commonwealth nations and America versus continental Europe. What is that difference? It's weaponry. The civilians own weapons. The British serfs had guns. They had swords. They had knives. They were armed. French peasants and serfs didn't have those things. They got their rights trampled on. The British ones didn't, and they actually made a Magna Carta that influenced all the rest of the world, all the Commonwealth nations, to have their own constitutions and have rights given to you by God. That is what happened.
Yep.
So if we want to be talking about all this gun control, like New Zealand's gun laws are ridiculous now. Like what happened was, obviously you guys know about the shooting that happened, but
oh yeah, that was terrible because we knew where it was. We all knew before the shit that Dean or whatever the hell her name. We all knew where that was going.
Dean is a she. You know, she worked for Bill Gates, right? So I'm not saying she's definitely a sketchy person, but she's got some questionable past. Also, she's got some other stuff I probably can't talk about on YouTube, but I'll just leave it at that.
Right.
The main thing on that is, what's interesting is I have some mates in New Zealand, across the Rubicon. Go check out his channel. He was talking to me recently about what happened with that buyback. You guys know that they stopped enforcing that, right?
Down in New Zealand?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I
heard about that. Yeah.
They're not. It just shows you how much of a failure that was. But not to mention that woman is such a dictator. Like within a month, she basically had a buyback scheme planned right away.
Yeah.
And you can say that about Australia with the Port Arthur massacre. Similar situation back in the 1990s. John Howard is a really sketchy person. I'd say he's up there with the Clintons and the Bushes. And you got to worry yourselves, because I have a problem. I really think that the Western world is turning into the continental Europe of the 19th century and the 18th century. And that's a really dark time of human history, and I really don't want to replicate that. I really don't. And I think we will have a lot of tyrants if we start turning in our weapons like we're seeing across the world. I think we will get more and more authoritarian governments. I hate to fearmonger, but that's just the reality. If you want tyrants, turn in your weapons. That's basically what it is. And I think people have lost all that passion and wonder of Western civilization, which is it's the great, especially the Anglosphere of Western civilization has been the most free, most safe, most advanced part of Western civilization. And my generation and millennials do not appreciate that, and that is a real shame to me.
It is.
And that makes me real sick, because it's like so many of my family members have died for Western civilization, to keep their wives and children safe and home at night, and not having to worry about all the terrible things that will happen if tyrants are not stopped where they are, and we're protecting a wonderful society that we've made. And that's what I fear.
Well, listen, let me give you a little positive side of this thing, because I'm with you there, and I'm right with, and I'm hoping that, like I say, the Western societies, the English-speaking societies, because we have a shared ancestry and history. That is undeniable. That is a fact. And these ideas 100% come back from England. And once again, a lot of respect for the even, like I say, some of the greatest figures of the Enlightenment era come from the UK. You're talking Adam Smith, John Locke, some of these great people that come up with some of these amazing ideas and concepts as it pertains to liberty. So yeah, mad respect. But one thing I will say is just a little bit of a positive there, because I know this stuff is negative, and especially when we're talking about the gun thing, and it does drive me nuts too. Because once again, once any society and once any population has allowed the state to disarm them, I mean, you're just a bunch of fucking impotent, helpless, right? And that's a terrible, terrible state to place people in, and not just for their personal health, but the psychology and even just what they even perceive as what freedom is. I get all that, but on the positive side of things, is just like with the state, how much power they present, how much, and right now they do. There's a lot, and there's still a lot of believers, but like I say, there's also some amazing geniuses and innovators out there that are disrupting and making sure that these statists have no ability to ever deny us our inherent and inalienable rights. And one person that's, in addition to not just figures such as Elon Musk that are coming up with different alternative technologies and methodologies, and even Starlink now, but you got someone like Cody Wilson down there now. He's been around for a while. I'm not sure if you ever heard of this young man. He's, I believe he's originally from Texas. And when they were the Democrats were trying to impose some tight gun regulations and restrictions. I think it was after the Sandy Hook thing. You know, they were taking advantage of people's, feeling compassion for the vulnerable and those who are harmed, which we all do, and they're opportunists. Well, when they were doing that, Cody Wilson, he got, basically the media covered him extensively when he was doing his thing. He invented 3D printers. First one was a plastic gun made out of plastic. So he used a 3D printer, and he actually uploaded all the blueprints onto the internet and showed how no matter what the state does, and he even designs and creates these 3D printers that you could buy for, I think it was less than $1,000. And now they even have sintered metal ones where you can produce your own guns at home. You can create your own weaponry. So these people, these authoritarians who think, that's the thing that's crazy, is they actually believe that they have this. I mean, they might have some people who are willing to try to impose themselves, but what they don't recognize or realize is just like any other animal in the state of nature, humans have this thing called, I want to live, I want to survive, I want to, right? So there are people who are finding alternative ways and methods that if the state or the authoritarians truly do try to impose themselves too much, well, no law, no rule, no regulation is ever going to stop or prevent people from being able to defend themselves. And that's what Pandora's box has already been opened. The cat's out of the bag, right? There's no way they're going to put that back in there. There's already technologies already readily available at quite a cheap price to not just have, weapons that can't even be. Now, he didn't do that for any nefarious reason. He was just showing that it could be done. He's not one of those, he's not a terrorist kind of guy or nothing. He's just an advocate of the Second Amendment. And we show him, right?
Realistically is going to have the technology to do that. Nothing to, I'm sure there are some really organized crime syndicates, but realistically, your average anarchist in I don't know, Antifa or something, they're not going to have the money or the resources to actually 3D print rifles. Realistically speaking, I really
these were predominantly handguns at the time. But once again, this is early developments in technology. So as with everything, and it's an exponential growth curve.
Eventually.
What's that? Oh yeah. But all I'm suggesting is that the people who are the authoritarians who are trying to restrict or impose themselves, they're punching way above their weight and what they think that they can actually do. There's they can cause a lot of harm for sure. But once again, the American people, the American culture, and the American psyche, and predominantly, especially for those who are, staunch advocates and defenders of their freedoms and liberties, they've still got a lot of fight left in them. And by natural extension, by sheer fact that these technologies are replicable, reproducible, and transferable to anywhere around the world, that means so does anyone else that lives on this planet, right? Now, it doesn't mean that it's easy. It doesn't mean it's going to be readily available. They are getting pretty good to the point now where it's going to be, much less expensive and much more readily available for people to have this kind of access. But once again, at the end of the day, it's just about having people's ability to be able to defend themselves. Nobody's looking to use violence or these arms to cause harm preemptively anyway. But if someone's trying to cause harm to you, you have to have the ability to defend yourself. And there are people out there, people might not like to hear this, but there are people out there who are, like I say, innovators, entrepreneurs, and creators who are busy making sure that we have access to the tools, the resources, and the knowledge to understand what freedom is and how we can maintain it. Doesn't mean it's going to work. It requires all of us to do the right thing. I'm just saying, the status, they've got a lot of power, they've got a lot of authority currently, but they're losing, because of their overreach, they're losing the minds of the masses. And that's where people like us can step in to fill that void and give them the proper information so they can understand what it is to be a free human being. And what they do with it, I don't know. Like I say, at the end of the day, I just want to at least know that the people around me at least have a healthy dose or understand what being a free human being is. At least if they got that knowledge, well, at least I got a better shot shot or chance in life than being surrounded by a bunch of indoctrinated statists who perceive of me as their enemy or their opponent because I don't vote along the same political lines.
Have you
No,
seen
entirely, yes. Another question here from Dave Hemmington.
Right on.
Trudeau's C-21 is a smuggler's dream.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it will just fuel the black market, of course. Any gun ban. You talk to anybody that lives in England right now. I have a friend of mine that I coach soccer with. He did a stint in the army. There used to be a military base just south of us here under the British rule. Still is somewhat. He finished his terms of service, met a lady, fell in love. He's been here for the past 20 plus years. And he could tell you stories about gun issues in Britain while he was still there. Yes, they abolished guns in the 70s. Even getting a shotgun is next to impossible just to get a license for it. And yet every major city from Manchester to London to Birmingham, a lot of these cities have incurred black market gun markets. So yeah, here a standard pistol can cost you anywhere from $500 to $1,000, depending on the brand. Okay, you have to have your card, you have your PARL, your RPAL, everything. You have to be vetted properly, and then you wait. It can be a day, 2 hours. Then the RCMP say, okay, yeah, you can have this. Here's your ATT. You're good to go. Carry on. We know that you're taking this in your vehicle. You're driving home. You're good to go. Okay, you can't get that in Britain, yet they still have this overwhelming gun problem, right? And knife problem too. Okay, now they want to get rid of knives as well because, like, well, really, like. Okay, you're one of the oldest cities on the planet, I think, next to Rome and Paris. Okay, and they have these overwhelming violent problems. There's still a black market for guns. There's still a black market for drugs, everything else. So getting rid of guns altogether, that's not going to solve the problem. The C-21 to me is just nothing but word fodder, word salads. Look important. In my last episode, I put emphasis on Mr. Bill Blair talking about his BS. Here's a guy who's the ex-police chief of Toronto. As far as I know, every policeman has to validate their service pistol once a month. They have to go out to the range and understand it. And the way he talks is like he's carried it and done all these wonderful things with it. I don't think that man has ever shot at anybody in vain. So he doesn't understand the whole psyche about actually raising a weapon up or a firearm, to my firearm friends, and firing it at people. He has no concept of that. He is basically following a political doctrine that doesn't want average Canadians and Americans to have access to a firearm. Why? What is the problem? You don't mind me smoking cigarettes. You don't mind me drinking liquor, whether it's a privatized company or not. The government still gets its piece out of it. So what is the worry? We all know it's a black market issue in this country. It has been for years. You cannot go to any gun store and buy an automatic rifle, contrary to the myth. When I first started working in a gun store after I left the military, I've had people ask me all these questions. Oh, how can you buy this? How can you buy that? You want an automatic machine gun in this country, you're going black market. You're not going to go to a gun shop in Miramichi or a gun shop in Toronto or Hamilton or in Edmonton to find anything that's going to allow you to automatic fire. That's next to impossible. Okay. Semi-auto, you get a magazine, you're allowed 5 rounds. If you're caught tampering said magazine, say goodbye to your gun license and you're going to serve some time if you're caught doing that. So everything they've talked about on this OIC and what they said before in the last little briefing they had, they're way out to lunch. They're even banning airsoft guns, for crying out loud. So Fred, if you ever come up to Canada and want to play airsoft with me, no.
David.
Well, can I just say
something? Some Nerf guns or something.
Let me just say something real quick there, because this is something we probably all understand. And I think Trudeau and some of his lackeys, such as Bill Blair, should realize too, is that there's probably, I would say, at least maybe 1 or 2 Canadians that might not, maybe I'm speculating, I'm guessing here because I can't say I know personally with any genuine knowledge, but I'm thinking there might be 1 or 2 Canadians that might not tell the state what weapons they own, where they are, how much they cost, how many bullets they. There might be a few people that don't think that the state is privy to that knowledge or should really necessarily know that. So whatever.
Okay.
Interesting issue. You know what you drive or what you put in your refrigerator or what you put in your mouth or what you watch on television.
You know what the New Zealanders did?
What's that, man?
They well, allegedly, totally allegedly, this story is hypothetical. All those firearms they supposedly bought back in parts, the only 20% out of the 80%, which is like about a couple 100,000 firearms in New Zealand, allegedly were buried underground in 8-inch pipes and stuffed in farmland. So yeah, it's not going to work. I don't really.
Well, we all heard about boating accidents.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
You know, well, what gets me though with these restrictions is that, okay, you don't want me to have guns, so I don't have the options of selling them. I got to wait to come up with the buyback issue. And that could be anywhere from next year to another 5 years down the road. We all know how the Liberal Party likes to procure things in this country. Look at the way they've outfitted our forest fighting services. Look at the way they outfitted our military. Look what they're doing with the bloody vaccine issue right now. And now they're telling me, saying, okay, well, you can still keep your property. We know you have it. Okay, you can still have this and keep this, but you can't do anything with it. So basically, I have glorified paperweights sitting in my gun cabinet right now that I can't do anything with. I can maybe pose for some pictures, but even YouTube is going to sense that too, because they're guns and they're bad. Heaven forbid if you touch those things. Oh, the nerve of you. Oh, so options are being limited now. It's never been a right in Canada to have a gun, but common sense used to prevail up until about 1995. And what annoys me the most is that these people were using the Polytechnic massacre as a basis, the basis of what happened. Now, the gun laws were a lot more lax than before that time.
And it was like, what, 30 years ago or more?
Exactly. Right. You might as well blame World War II as well, because every farmer that I knew of, that I grew up with, had a half-assed arsenal on their wall. Didn't matter if it was 22s or 30-06. No one cared, because people, this was gun control when I was a kid. You touch this, I'm going to smack your ass.
Yeah.
That was it. When I was 6 years old, I didn't touch Dad's gun.
That's right.
Simple. Until he showed me how to use it properly. It was the same thing with power tools. It was the same thing with the tractors, same thing with trucks, everything. You ask me if you want to know how this works. Okay. So you can factor in all these theories and this skepticism about violence on television and violence online and in video games and everything. Fine. That's up to mom and dad to teach their kids the proper etiquette. This is not real. This is make-believe. Okay.
Well, let me just say something real quick there, John, actually, because when it comes to stuff, that's part of the drive. Once again, is when they say this stuff, right? It's like down in the US, this is the thing. If you went to America, and I have, I'm sure you might. It's like,
I've been to the States numerous times. Yeah.
They look just kind of like, they look human, just like I do. Two arms, 2 legs.
No way.
I suppose there are some, right? Might have a limb missing or whatever. But I mean, they all look human to me. So people should start questioning, I would think, right? That's the thing that I always question with my fellow citizens. Like, why is it that you think these people, they cross this imaginary line, they have the freedom to have, gun rights and genuine freedom of speech, but somehow you cross this line? To me, it's like, why do you not question? What is it what's so exceptional about Canadian or New Zealander or an Australian or someone from the UK as opposed to an American? Nothing other than right up here, right? It's always, at the end of the day, folks, it's always up here. It's what your concept, it's what your ideas, what you believe to be, what it means to be free. And if you're the kind of person that thinks that I can be free while my authoritarian mommy or daddy controls everything I do, everything I say, if I'm allowed to have a weapon, and if I'm allowed to walk here, if I'm allowed to, then you just don't understand liberty. You don't understand what the hell freedom is, right? The Americans are the only people in history that enshrined in their constitution at least the closest rhetoric that resembles, this is what freedom is, right? And to me, when I see my Canadian counterparts constantly insulting the Americans as if they're like, beneath this or inferior in some ways, like listen.
No, we actually are
Canadian and all this stuff, right? I'm a Canadian, I get this, but I'm not so fucking stupid or nationalist that I would ever suggest that we're supreme because we're more conformist. No, freedom, liberty, and I will even admit the American people are sliding down their own path towards collectivism and totalitarianism, which I'm not happy with, because once again, that's that shining beacon that we're all supposed to be looking up to. And once they're starting slides, like, well, if they're sliding, we're not going to be doing much better, because at least they got the ideas. We don't even have the fucking ideas, right? When we're trying to talk to our fellow Canadians, we're talking about we're trying to navigate the space where I have to function through. Yeah, I know you're supposed to be a slave for this reason. You're supposed to be a slave for that reason, but you should be free here. Where at least the Americans, it's pretty easy. Like freedom, right? It's like it's a much better sales narrative and tactic. It's like freedom, right? It's like, come on, they at least understand it. But that's the thing. Even their education system, I'm seeing, has been very hard at work over the last probably 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
Where now you have a substantial portion of the population, or they're even saying, like, you people you're at the epitome of what liberty is all about, and you're down there saying, take it from me, take it. Holy fucking entitlement, man. These are people who have lived so entitled of a lifestyle that they don't even seem to realize that they're actually shooting themselves in their own proverbial foot. I can't grasp it. I really can't. It's tough to watch, I gotta tell you.
I'm like kind of just getting out of my education, and if you want to talk about like left-wing teachers and stuff like that, many. Just gonna say.
Oh, I've had a few of those too. Yeah, I hear you.
I've had some, especially in history class.
History, huh?
I mean, here's the thing: like, if they're teaching you that your history is evil and you're somehow a participant in genocide, are you really gonna feel like you love your country anymore? No,
really.
You should ignore like atrocities that settlers committed and stuff like that. Like, I'm not an advocate for that. I think we should learn all of history, but saying that it's all you somehow participate in this white supremacy or something like that is really misleading. And if you want to talk about like white supremacy, you can look no further than American cities. American cities run by Democrats that basically are still segregated right now. And abortion clinics are almost exclusively in black neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about white supremacy, we can, but no one wants to talk about that bit. All the left-wing education system ignores that. Oh, if you mention that, no. You can't talk about that because that's those guys are on our side. But you can't love your own country, and I think that's a shame. You should love your country. Remember those guys in this a couple of days ago? I think it was they put these guys in Scotland. They put a sticker on a cave or something like that, like a bumper sticker type thing, and it said "Love your country." And the headline of this article was "White supremacists start campaign in the UK," and it was just like the photo of the sticker, and it's like, really? If I was British, I would have so much pride in being British. I mean, how amazing is that culture? Really, they conquered the entire world. How impressive is that? No other country can say that. You know?
Yeah, but conquer is not necessarily something to look up for. Now, America, right?
America does the same thing.
Well, now they've gone into it, but the American idea, the ideals, because that's the thing. I'm not a nationalist and I'm not a proud countryman. I'm proud of ideas. Now, the country of Canada, or at least those who used to comprise or pretend to be the authority, or those who spoke on behalf of Canadians, used to, right? At least pretend or lend credence to the ideas of freedom. And those people, for sure, when they were alive at the time, I'd say kudos to you, and I at least respect for you for that. But no, I have no loyalty to any state or any country. I have only loyalty to ideas. And when the ideas change or shift, just like in Germany, you might have been a proud German at some point in time. But if you were a proud German, right, loved your country under National Socialism, well, I don't know. Maybe you might think that's good. I might think it's not so good. Especially if
there are many Russians that love,
like, let's say, a Jew or a capitalist or whatever, right? So this is I don't have this blind allegiance or nationalism. No, ideas. And the reason why I respect America is for the ideas of the Constitution, not for the people. It's if you respect and adhere to the ideas, that's what the country was all about. That's the overarching philosophy and emphasis. And that's why, to me, is I don't, and it's not that I'm against nationalists. Here's the part why I get attacked from the left and the right is I could just as easily, if I wanted to, show you guys like how much I love, but I won't play that game. I know I'd be in your favor even more if I did, but I just can't. Why? Because I realize where that takes us. It takes you down a road where now you feel that in-group thing, where you feel all that sensationalism about like I'm part of the tribe. And like I say, what I've come to realize and recognize is the tribe that I would be trying to align with, there's a large, substantial portion of them that would shank me in a fucking second if they were given the opportunity. So sorry if I don't have the blind allegiance, right, to nationalism, but I do have a blind, but I do have allegiance.
Proud of your heritage it should not be seen as a bad thing. And that's
but when you say heritage, what's the heritage, right? You're talking about millions of people. Some people were good, some people were bad, right?
Culture, like you look at historically, Britain was the tyrant. Okay, Britain had the empire.
Britain is just soil, right?
Yeah. Okay, they were. The British mandate was
Britain's just an island off the coast of France in Europe, in the Atlantic Ocean. That's what it is.
But they all had their empires. That's the thing. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of empires. Never been.
No, neither am I. When I think of it, neither am I.
Not an imperialist. Never been.
What's to say though too? If Britain didn't do its deeds back in the 1600s, we could have been French. We could have been Dutch. We could have been Portuguese. We could have been. We wouldn't. I don't think we would have had North America now as we see it.
I'm not a favorite subject. I don't align with. Hey, if my master called the plantation whatever, I don't fucking care what the master's plantation they call it. All right, I'm an idea. I don't. This is why, like I said, this is probably the area where we get into like an issue, because as a libertarian, I don't have no blind loyalties to anybody. The only loyalty I have to is ideas.
Ideas.
Sovereignty is my idea.
Ideas to my country, just as much as I have an allyship with Red's country.
But when you say your country, but Canadian. Hey, I'm Canadian. How could I possibly fucking promote nationalism when Trudeau would love to throw me the brig if he
still just because Joe Biden's my president doesn't mean I hate America or think America. I can think.
Oh, you like the ideas. You have to see. This is the thing. Yeah. You like the ideas, man. You have to be clear in your language. You like the ideas. You respect.
We got another question here, folks.
Because you can't really say that you love America or you love UK, because, like I say, there's lots of people in the UK that would just as soon, especially the socialists. Would you at least acknowledge there's a few socialists in the UK?
Oh God, yes, in our country and the States, respectively, too. And the idea of Canada is fantastic to me. The idea of America is fantastic. The idea of Britain's fantastic. A lot of our culture has come from that, right? And that's worth defending. Whether Trudeau doesn't give two shits about Canada, we know this. He doesn't give two shits about the country. His old man was the exact same way.
I know, right? But here's the thing, though. Once you go into the nationalism, then a whole lot of people will align with Trudeau, because
nationalism is not going to make people align with Trudeau. Trudeau is far from a nationalist.
No, he's the last. He's the spoiled rich kid.
Hey, let's not use Trudeau's excuse. Let's say the next. let's use the next tin pot dictator that is a nationalist thing, but still does the same thing and says the same thing that Trudeau says. But he gives you more of that. But I'm doing it because I love you, Canada. I'm a nationalist. Because of course I can give you the same narrative that Trudeau does, but I can just pretend that. But it's all about us, right?
Well, it's all about him and his mandates. He doesn't give two shits. He says it to win hearts and minds. You know? Wickeder Than Thou says, if you want to live in high trust-free society, you have to expect bad people to break that trust once in a while, and for good people to correct it.
Yeah,
I made an episode on that. Sometimes good people might have to do some bad things.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
I was just saying good people can't correct it, because the only people that are allowed to do any correcting these days are predominantly the bad people. So, sounds good.
Meaning you have to turn bad to do something right. Fight fire with fire. I've said numerous times in my shows too that the governments, and not so much the provincial, but the federal government is starting to back people into corners, especially with all these quarantines.
Well, Harper did that long before even Trudeau.
Well, he wasn't perfect. No, he wasn't perfect.
Harper economically enslaved entire generations, $114 billion to bail out the banksters in this country. Royal Bank,
plus the auto industry,
IBC, TD. So that's the thing. To me, it's like even conservatives at the time were trying to pump up Harper as being this fucking great guy and this he's a free market economist. But meanwhile, banksters.
That money also came back, though, Bennett. That money came back from the auto industry. So even though we had that recession in 2008 and 9,
if you steal money from me, even if you pay it back later, I'm not going to forget that you stole the.
I agree. I agree with that too. Why should the government bail anybody out? for that matter. But in the
No.
same sense, look
See,
at
this
what the
is
government's doing now with Bombardier.
Do you guys want freedom or do you want statism? Because
Well, I
either
want my freedom. I want to do what I want my money.
Because if you're going to advocate for statism, you're just going to get your brand of it. It's not going to be conducive where you're going to have a peaceful society, because it just means your opponents are going to be fucking doing the same thing as you, and they'll be waiting to take you down next. So, like I say, play the game of statism, play the game of nationalism. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to have to live in this world regardless of whether it's authoritarian lefty or authoritarian righty. To me, I don't really give a fuck, to be honest with you, because I'll deal with myself against anybody that fucks with me, all right? But I'm just saying, if you actually care about freedom, if you genuinely do, if that's your goal, if that's your purpose of doing these things or talking about these issues, then let's be fucking honest and forthright here. Let's talk to each other like real adults and say, stop believing in a bunch of collective bullshit or pretending that these people have any legitimate authority over you. Because the minute you keep giving all these people, whether it's your team because you feel all aligned with them, you might feel good in the moment at that, but they're going to fuck you. They'll save you. Just like right now, the left is doing it. The left is doing the same thing. The left's like, oh, I love me some Trudeau. And yeah, Trudeau will fuck with us first, but you don't think he'll come fuck with some of his lefties too once they haven't aligned perfectly with him? No different.
Of course they will. Of course they will.
The exact same thing. It was the right wingers. And you know what? I've got a brother who's gay. It was right wingers that 20 years ago would have been wanting to fucking kill that fucking guy.
Yeah.
All right. And it would have been these fucking idiots that were saying, don't smoke weed, don't do this, don't drink. So to me, I don't give a shit. They're both, like I say, I reject authoritarian mommy and daddy. Now, if some people are still adults and they haven't reckoned that in their mind and they still believe that they need authoritarian mommy and daddy, I can't help you. You have to go to a psychologist. You have to fix yourself. But just don't sit here and try to convince me that I'm ever going to be a nationalist, a statist, or align with any authoritarian, no matter if I feel like they share the same skin color or whatever. Ideas. And until we get the ideas figured out, folks, like I say, we're all going to be circle jerking and wasting our fucking time here until we get the ideas out there. And I'm not fucking joking. I'm being absolutely serious. And why? Because I can't wait another 10 or 20 years. As a matter of fact, if we do, well, I'll say it right here now. Keep playing these games. Everyone keep playing their left, right thing. Go ahead. Just know right now, I'm saying it right here on this thing. And I'll be right here waiting for you to say, Ben, it was 100% right. Keep playing that left, right game. And until you figured it, it's authoritarians versus libertarians. Like I said, I'll be right here waiting in the wings till someone finally says, yeah, you're right, Bennett. Sorry for being such a fucking idiot. I'm sorry.
Well, I just want to have a special thank you out there to Wicketer Now for donating $1.49. Thank you very much, Wicketer. Much appreciated. Thank you. So,
and I'm not. Listen, I'm sorry, guys. I know, but I'm very animated. Listen, you know, and
no, this is good.
You
this
know,
is actually what we need.
I get very, because this stuff matters. This matters. This is no different than if I was having a conversation with some of my family. Like, come on, you got to really, really think about this stuff. And it's always proven to be most beneficial for not just me, but for anyone that's ever taken my advice. It's usually it's pretty good. Not saying I'm perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm telling you, you got to stop with the nationalist stuff. You got to make it more about the ideas. And if you make it about the ideas, then of course if we're all in the same geographical area, we can still kind of feel that nationalism, right? If it's my family, right? I feel very in-group preference to my family, but only to my family that's on the same side of me and defending my freedoms, right? But I do have people in my family who hate me, despise me, loathe me for the fact that I stand for freedom. Am I going to be like, oh, but there's still this, I love my family? No. The people that hate me and would want to shank, I don't have any blind loyalty to any of these people. Sorry.
Fred, you got anything to add?
Huh? Oh,
Yeah,
I'll just say, I'm never going to be not, I don't know. I think you need to find my loyalty would be to the Western civilization, Christianity, the ideas of liberty. I agree with all those things. I could just never be on the side of like,
I'm with you, man.
Abandoned West, because what else is there?
I'm with you, my friend. Fred, let me tell you, let me just say before, because I know, and trust me, I know you're probably feeling like this guy, he's showing no loyalty. Listen, I know all the feelings you're going through, my friend. Trust me, I am. Listen, I have met, but it's once again, if we don't emphasize the ideas, the nationalism thing, and I get it. Fuck, I get it. Do I ever get it? It'd be so easy for me to just say, but I realize that it's detrimental for us if we play these games, man. And I'm a long run guy. I'm the guy that's thinking of the long game, right? I'm not thinking about the immediate benefit, because I realize that that's what everyone's been doing. That's what everyone's been doing, right? Pump up the narrative, whether it's the left for socialism or the right for nationalism, right? Whatever. It's just keep pumping it up. And I get what it is they recognize what it is. Here's what it is. Let me explain this to you. And I'm not a psychologist, but I've listened to some really intelligent psychologists. Our brains are split in two hemispheres. And the right side and the left side have predominant areas, right? Where it's the analytical side and the more creative side. And let me tell you, the left appeal to that side to fuck with you, and the right appeals to your other side to fuck with you. They both do it because they know how the human brain works. These people
Well,
are
there's
not
another point
stupid.
I went to them now too. Civic nationalism is good. Yes. The love of your community, the love of what's
Community,
around you.
for sure. Community, the people that yes,
Exactly. You know,
for sure.
and people misinterpret though. When you see a white person waving the flag of their country, you're taught that's a bad thing. Okay, well, I've worked with people that are black and Asian, and they waved the same flag as I did. And it had nothing to do with the color of skin, had nothing to do with what team won the World Cup back in 1966. It had a matter, okay, this is my home and native land.
Yeah, no,
That's
I'm with you. Like I say, and I'm with you. Like I say, I would even, matter of fact, if I was American and the Americans were actually predominantly espousing that culture of genuine adherent, I would consider myself not necessarily nationalist, but 100% like where you guys are at in terms of the ideas. But once again, we have to separate the fact that we have this, and we've been taught this, right? And I get it, I understand it. But the nationalism or the obedience, the loyalty that we're put, or that people tend to put forward today, it's the people that are using you for your loyalty are doing that for nefarious fucking reasons. That's the part that I worry about, right? That's the problem I worry about. It's the word
salads we keep talking about.
That's like I like both you guys, and I trust both of you guys, but I don't necessarily trust all the fuckers that are trying to keep you guys in the mindset of the nationalist bullshit, because I think they have all their own ulterior motives, right? So once again, I say Canadian Libertarian. I've made that point, and I've had fucking left wingers constantly say, "Oh, you're a nationalist too," because you're a kid. So I get that from both sides. Trust me, I get it. And I in a way, I can say I'm proud in some way, at least in some of the ideas, and some of the Canadians who are not just alive today, but have lived in the past, who did staunchly fight. Think about all the people that went, and even though maybe what they did might not necessarily been perfect, but their ideas and what they thought they were doing was to stand in defiance of totalitarianism, of National Socialism or fascism or communism, and they went and fought to defend, those individuals or the individual rights, freedom, and liberties of the English-speaking nations, predominantly against that kind of stuff. I'm totally with you. I'm totally with you there. But once again, I always worry about when you emphasize the nationalist thing without at least making sure that you're prioritizing the ideas of the nation. If you're
but it's not the bare blood nationalism, right? For sure, yes.
Right? Because I really do worry about this, and especially for this good, fine young gentleman here. Because man, you could go multitudes of ways at your young age. Like people can draw you into a multitudes of, and I get how that in-group feeling and feeling part of the group, man, that's a great thing. We all love that. Whether you're on a hockey team, right? Whether you're fucking in racing or any kind of sports, or what, we love being part of a group, right? That's what it is. We're social beings. But I'm a cool at
the point. Fight is between the left and right, between globalist collectivists, and freedom-loving nationalist individuals. And you've nailed in the head. Like you can still love your country and be a libertarian. You can love your country and be a liberal, love your country and be a conservative, or whatever brand you want to. The thing being, we're all seeing the global dynamic here.
You're not standing for that anymore. If the people who represent your country are no longer standing for these things, or no one, this is the thing. This is the thing. If we at least even had one, like one party in this entire country, I might even understand the nationalist sentiment at least as it pertains to one party who's supposed to be a representative voice of the nation. But we don't have any voices in terms of the establishment parties who are talking about the things that you and I are, right? So if I were to go all nationalism, that would give me that would give O'Toole the ability to convince a bunch of Canadians that you should fall in line with my shit because I'm conservative and I'm a proud Canadian. I just don't want anyone to get sucked up or pulled into these collective endeavors, which at the end of the day is just a bunch of political language that seeks to deny the individual entirely, but pretends that we're all part of some big happy family that we're not. We're not part of one big happy family. I wish we were, man. I do really genuinely, and hopefully someday we will get to that point. But until that comes, I just can't play that nationalist card, and I just can't support the nationalist sentiment. I can definitely support the ideas, and like I say, it doesn't matter where it came from. UK, just like this fine young man was saying earlier, the UK, there were some great people and figures in the past, and I'll point to the individuals. I'll reference, like if I read a book and even some authority in the past that did some positive thing to advance liberty, like even King George, maybe at some point of time, I will acknowledge and respect that act. Doesn't mean I have to fall in line or align with everything King George ever did.
Oh, of course.
Right?
You don't have to fall in line with anything. But
right.
the thing being, you deserve to go to work, pay your bills, whatever you want to do, own your property, defend your property, and live your life to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
And I like doing that because we've had that before in this country. And now it's getting compromised every
100%.
time you file your income taxes. Now we have 2 carbon taxes. They don't say it's a carbon tax, but you and I both know, we all know it's bullshit. It's another cash grab to fill in the national debt that they've spent frivolously in the name of us.
Yeah.
And for what? What has come out of it? Kulik says again, I'd rather have the turd than jag me. I hope you're kidding. But I can see it on paper. Yeah, he might do a better job, but they're both race hustlers. They're both virtue signalers, and they're both based on a totalitarian ideologue. So, that's my say on it. Like I said, none of them represent any kind of wholesome brand whatsoever.
You guys both get the, you guys must both get what he's doing there. I'm a kulak. You get that reference, right?
Yeah, vaguely.
Do you? Oh, well, if you don't, so let me explain to you fine folks in case you're not aware. So a kulak, there were 5 million of them who were killed or pushed off of their land entirely in the Ukraine.
Ah, yes, okay.
Under Stalinist Russia, right? These were people who were providers. These were farmers. These were, salt of the earth people who were providing for the people in their society and most of others. And the communists came in and basically starved and took their land and starved the kulaks basically out of existence. And 5 million, of these people fucking died, right? So this is the part, like I say, this is the part where I always worry and I get massively concerned about ever abiding to any ideology or any especially when it's a collective ideology. That's where my major concern is, because like I've watched, I'm a student of history, and I've watched, that's always how these things come to exist. And it usually is the pretense of an in-group preference, right? Where it's like us versus them. And it's real easy to put that narrative in play because that's humans historically, that's what it's always been, right? Mm-hmm. So it's easy. The problem is when you create that narrative of us versus them, and you're talking about people, like whether it's left versus right, is you literally have at that point. Sorry, go ahead, man.
There is no left and right. That's a social construct.
Exactly. So I've been really. You go on there, young man, because I've been kind of.
No. It's all good.
Sorry, man.
There is a big realignment happening, and the left and right mean nothing. Like when people call me, I've been called racist and nationalist or whatever, and I don't really give a crap. Like,
good for you.
Go find me, like honestly. But how should I phrase this? The problem of our society right now, and I love, don't get me wrong, I love liberty, I love all of that, but you can't, I know you can't really change culture with government because that doesn't really work. But if you really want to talk about the root of like the terrible things going on in our society, where you have people thinking it's okay to like throw a brick through a window or get in fights with people in the streets like we had last summer, which is crazy. The problem is not that we have like nationalist groups in America or communist groups in America. That's not the issue. The political establishment of the United States created Antifa and the Proud Boys, and created Black Lives Matter, and created Boogaloo Boys. Those organizations are not the problem. The media point at them and say that's the issue. No matter what it is, Fox News will be like BLM and Antifa. That's the problem. And don't get me wrong, they're doing illegal things, and that's wrong, and I condemn it. That's bad.
Exactly.
Proud Boys do bad stuff too. The Boogaloo Boys do bad stuff. None of them are the problem. The problem is the establishment that screwed everyone the last 50 years since the 1960s. What they've done here is they've ruined our economy. They've basically spent money that doesn't exist anymore. You know, whether it's making our debt so high that we will never be able to pay this off at all. It doesn't. This money doesn't exist. Stealing from future generations, making it possible to buy a home in the United States or any Western country right now. You know, I can't move out of my parents' house.
I hear you,
It's too expensive. My parents bought this property where we live 20 years ago. It wasn't that expensive at all. It was relatively cheap then. I could have afforded it off like a pretty low income job back then. But now I can't because it's too expensive. And so the political establishment, the Trudeaus of the world, the Bidens of the world, the Clintons of the world, the John Howards of the world, the various. I don't really understand UK politics that much. I'm going to go with we'll say the Tories because they've really screwed the UK too, along with the Labour. We'll say basically all the political establishment parties of the Western world have screwed the people of the West. And what I'm trying to say is it's not that I'm a nationalist and I swear to people. No, I don't swear like my allegiance to politicians. That's stupid. Politicians are scumbags.
Right.
I am on the side of our founding ideals. I'm not on the side of this temporary thing because civilizations are, they're not necessarily forever, but the ideas are, and the people aren't. So if we are to make a timeless society where we want, everyone kind of wants the same thing, right? They want that, you know, that stable area to live. They want peace. They want security. They want all these things. The government isn't looking at our best interest right now, wherever you are, and they've destroyed it that way. So I guess and the most I can say on this is the abandonment of normal things in society, like Christianity and stuff like that, in the 60s and 70s. What did that do? Did that really improve our system right now?
It did terrible. And
but listen, you have to be a religious person. I'm not saying you have to.
No,
I don't want to force anything on anyone.
Exactly.
But did abandoning those core important things that make Western civilization, the Anglosphere, good? Did abandoning that improve a society? No, it didn't. And the people that are on the side of leftism will say abandoning those things was good. And that type of thinking is ruining our culture. It's nihilism. It's the political establishment. It's a bunch of things, and they're all assaulting the greatest civilization that's ever been made in human history. And I guess that's just my rant, but.
Well, listen, I think that was a great rant. And I just want to, first and foremost, let me just say to you, I apologize if I came off a little harsh there earlier on the Nationals thing. Because listen, I think you're just a really respectable young man. And Matt, everything you just said now makes total sense to me. And like I said, I don't want to, think that or come across as I'm trying to, attack you in any way. I like I say, I just worry about this stuff. But what you said, everything about what you just said completely resonates with you. And as actually personally in my own life, how much more it resonates me is the sheer fact that I have two sons that are, you're a little bit younger, but I got, two sons that are millennial age as well. And this stuff, when I see the kind of fucking debt impositions and shit that's being imposed on my sons and the kind of hell they're going to go through. One thing I will say about a Gen Xer is because my parents' generation, the boomers predominantly, were the first, the women, most of the women went off into the workforce. There was a lot of advancement in terms of the economic prowess, the West, especially here in North America. Europe was still having to rebuild, but North America was all the infrastructure, everything was intact. So there was lots, not just capital, but lots of wealth, lots of stuff that built up. And like I say, and there was a lot of prosperous actions that took place and good for the boomers and the time that they enjoyed that. The problem is a lot of them have chosen to use the state to further benefit themselves, but it's constantly at the expense of their multitude, the multitude of successive generations. And that's the part that drives me fucking nuts, is because, listen, you gotta pay it for. To me, in a family setting, it's so easy. And you don't need, just like the free market, right? Adam Smith, it's not the benevolence of the book, you're bigger, just like in the family, right? The reason why I would never, ever, well, first of all, I love my sons more than anything. But even if I was like an evil parent that didn't even care about my son, I would automatically be incentivized with the absence of the state or government largesse or forced wealth and income redistribution. I would be automatically incentivized to treat my children and my grandchildren with dignity and respect, for the sole reason that I came into this into this planet on this earth naked and reliant on everyone around me, and I'm going to go out of this earth in the same fucking manner, right? That's the beauty. Whether you want to call it God or just evolution, I don't care how you want to attribute it to, but natural incentive says that we keep a close bond or relationship with multiple generations, for the reason, even if you don't necessarily love or respect, because we realize that we rely on each other at certain point in times of our life. Once you've removed that from the equation, and now the state can supplant not just husband and wife, but father, son, daughter, grandparents, pensions, all this stuff, there's no longer a reason to respect each other or keep that close adhesiveness of the family unit, because now you could just, if I have a disagreement with my kids or my grandkids, that's okay. The state will take care of me now, right? That's the thing that destroys the family. And once you've destroyed the family, I mean, if you want to be into collectivism in any way, or not collectivism, but if you want to be in group, yeah, the people that you genuinely care about, the people that you genuinely know that love you and you got your best interests in heart, that's the people that you should be aligned with. And that's the people that, and it's the state that's constantly destroying the very fabric of what that means for us to have our community, right? To rely on voluntary exchange. When I was growing up, actually, even today in 2021 in New Brunswick, to this day, which is why I'm kind of appreciative to live in these little backwoods rural areas of Canada, you'll still see, if somebody's house burned down, let's say they didn't have insurance because they were too poor to afford it, the entire community and the church groups will come together and help. Why? Not because government told them to, but because they still have the idea of Christianity and what it is for community and how that works and how that reciprocates back. That if you do good for your neighbor, that's going to automatically want them to do better for you. That's how you create a cohesive, properly peaceful and prosperous society, is making sure that we rely on each other, but through peaceful and voluntary means. And when we've done that, you genuinely create that community that gives you that feeling that you want, and I want that feeling, but I can't get that feeling. I won't get that feeling while I live among the bulk of my citizens in this country who can't stand the fact that I want my freedom. I want my sovereignty. That's why I fight against nationalism. That's why I fight against globalism, and why I predominantly focus on Christianity, morals and ethics, and the free market, so that we know, it's like I say, because the free market, voluntary exchange, if we do that, we can be the ones that will truly shift the entire plane of Western society and advance this forward. We have to lead by example and show people how it's done. I don't want to turn to nationalism.
I agree.
I don't want to turn to globalism. I don't want to turn to using the gun at my neighbor to control them. And if we do that, and if we do this today, if we do this tomorrow, and we do it for long enough that we show that this works, then we might be able to advance the kind of liberty that you and I all want for each and every one of the people that definitely deserve it. Right? Sorry, I know.
What's a worse enemy in your view? Like, what would be more of a problem for Canada? Like, let's think of Canada specifically in this case. I'm going to be completely honest. Canadian politics looks hectic from the American view sometimes, because I just don't understand how it works very well. I don't know. That is too many for me to think about. Okay. What's a worse pill to swallow, the nationalism pill or the globalism pill?
Well, that's the thing. If you go to the old, there's two things. So if you go to the monkey brain, in-group preference, people that I align with and are closer to my community, of course, nationalism, right? And even actually, if you extrapolate out to the globalism aspect, I still, if someone held a gun to my head and said it's one or the other, I think I would still have to choose the nationalism by sheer fact that, at least, right, if whether they're opponents or fellow travelers, I want people that are at least close to me, right, that I have the ability to affect or talk to or persuade or have some semblance of conversation where I can, maybe put forth my own information as it pertains to liberty. But yeah, the globalism, I like I say, I don't understand how anyone would want to promote globalism. We're not just sacrificing ourselves as individuals for the collective in terms of the nation or the ideas of the nation, but now and that's still kind of vague, where you actually don't have any principles because you recognize that individuals within a nation have all kinds of different ideas. But now that you expand that out to the global scales, like, well, then you're saying there's no principles at all, because when you're whether actually national or global, because you're talking whether you're millions or billions of people, all kinds of people have different ideas. So I don't like, to me, but at the end of the day, if someone put the gun to my head and it's like, well, you have to deal with the people that are in your immediate surroundings or people that have no relationship or even know you from a hole in the ground, like, of course, I'm going to at least hope for at least that, let me toss the coin, hope at least people that have a historical knowledge in terms of the West of at least some semblance of Christianity, some semblance of free market capitalism. I'm going to try my hand with these people at least, because at least they might be that much closer, right, to someone that I can convince to, actually respect and genuine freedom and liberty. But once again, I don't think I'd ever want to be placed in the scenario I got to pick one or the other, right? That's the thing to me.
But that's basically what it's come down to in America.
Oh, I know it will come down to that eventually.
We're voting for last election, right? I didn't vote in the last election. I couldn't have. It's too young.
Okay, right, yeah. Is it 18 down in the New Zealand? 18?
No. In the United States, it's 18. I live in the US right now.
Oh, you're in the US. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Let's look at the US election, right? You had two choices. You had Donald Trump, the America First agenda.
Yep.
We're going to leave everyone else alone. The anti-imperialist wars, right?
Yeah. I love that about Trump, actually.
I agree. I love all those things.
Yep,
then you have the globalist, the pro-imperialist wars, backed by the Chinese, backed by Davos, that guy. And somehow we Americans chose the globalist. And I'm just going to have to say, I prefer the Trump agenda way 100%. More over the Biden agenda. Now, do I like
I agree.
Trump
Yeah.
person? Not really. He's a dirtbag. But is he would he have been is he going to be better than would he have been better than Joe Biden in the long run? Of course. And no one really believes that Joe Biden is really going to be staying in office right now.
Joe Biden is just a continuation of the establishment that's been fucking the neocons.
It's like we elected a Mitch McConnell to be president.
Yeah, pretty much.
The only thing that's slightly
or Clinton.
Or Clinton. It's no different because the only thing the Democrats really do that's different than Republicans is like raise taxes. That's it. Sure, they make all this other stuff that they make you focus on, like, oh, they're gonna let transgenders into the military or some stupid, BS like that, which I don't agree with. But they make laws just virtue signal to their own people, But that's the only thing that they really do different, and they just continue the same old crap that's always been going on. They're no different, and I find it such hacks. I deleted Twitter. Thank God, that website is so stupid. I've gotten some dumb fights with communists on Twitter over what is actually like worse for America, and somehow these people still think it's a good idea to vote for people like Joe Biden, or left-wing people still think it's a good idea to vote for Joe Biden. And I'm like, wouldn't you want the political establishment to be kicked in the nuts? Like, why wouldn't you pick Trump in this case? He's destroying both the Republican and Democrat Party. That is like, I didn't know he would do that when he entered office 4 years ago. I didn't expect that, and he basically did. Almost single-handedly, he destroyed both. Imagine how amazing it would have been if he got reelected, right?
Yeah. He
basically eliminated the bipartisan the partisan political spectrum where you have Democrats and Republicans that are basically a one-party state. It's all fake. Everything they do is not real. What you're watching on TV when they yell at each other, they all go to each other's houses on the weekends and have champagne together. They don't really. It's all an act. Imagine how great it would have been if he just tore them apart for another 4 years. They wouldn't exist. These people wouldn't get voted back in. No one can stand. The mask is slipping. The mask is slipping on these people because every time, like the last so often, you kind of have seen how hypocritical they've been. Like people like Gavin Newsom, where they're going to a really expensive restaurant as they destroy every restaurant in the entire state of California.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
Well, same thing here with our politicians that went on holiday over Christmas, and they got their PP slat because, well, and they're the first ones to enforce the lockdowns. Don't travel, don't go anywhere, close these stores. If you're out and about and you're not doing these things properly, we'll give you a ticket. In some jurisdictions, $850, some $1,200, some $3,000, and yet they're in Cuba, they're in the Bahamas, they're traveling here. The one politician said she went to Ireland to help her daughter out with her move. And it's like, okay, you told the people to stay indoors, to maintain social distancing, and yet you can gallivant all over greater North America and parts of Europe. The whole do as I say, not as I do mantra is null and void. It worked when you were a 10-year-old boy under mom and dad's hand, but not now. Okay. Now you're telling me where I can work, where I can piss, where I can shit, where I can eat. No, it's not working. Yeah, especially when it comes to this respiratory infection. Not an actual disease where you lie there and get the old virus like in 28 days later and get the rage virus. Okay. It's affecting the elderly. And that brings back to my point there with you, Bennett, in regards to how we treat our seniors too. Look at all the LTCs in Canada, some that are privately owned and government owned. And what's going on there that's bringing these things through the roof? What's skyrocketing these cases? But they also emphasize too, they are cases, they're not actual diagnoses. They are cases. So what is going on with this? Anyway, go. Some more questions come up here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see here. Tommy Gunn says,
Tommy Gunn in the chat.
Hold the media and the MPs accountable for the work that, yeah, exactly. And I've said that in my show numerous times too. I highly recommend that MPs and senators and congresspeople alike, especially in the states there, Fred, take responsibility for your shit. Really, if you're an MP and you're making $180,000 plus a year, okay, fine. I can see your tax benefits and the privileges you get because you represent your riding. Then bloody represent your riding properly and listen to your people. Okay? Because maybe we're lucky out here in Alberta. We've had the advantages. We have a little more laid back jurisdiction from Mr. Kenney. Now, a lot of people are upset with Mr. Kenney. I'm not personally, because he's basically taken the time and effort to reach out and talk to Albertans in regards to what's happening. Something that Rachel Notley never did. Never fathom. And don't get me going on the liberal mandates out here. They have been annihilated since 2015. So when I hear these politicians talk a good talk, I want to see them lace up and skate. I don't want to see them lace up and sit in the bench and then tell the rest of us what to do. Because I'm at a point right now where I've laced up and I'm willing to skate. And I'm willing to throw the gloves down, right? Whether to kill a penalty or to forecheck or to stop the game, because I'm getting fed up with it. What say you?
well, you know, I just want to reference the whole COVID thing since the topic was brought up. I just want to say, and fortunately, it's all on record too. When this all first came out, and at the time, my grandma, she has since passed on my mother's side. She was actually one of the most influential people when my mom and dad went through their divorce when I was a young man. She was the one that kind of took me under during that whole ordeal. And she was the one that gave me some great ideas and the morals and Christianity and all. And I worried about that woman all the time because, like I say, well, I was the oldest grandson, you know, and we had a real close bond and relationship. And anyways, and she was in one of these long-term care facilities. And I instinctively, when this whole thing came out, I was like, this is where, like, not locking down fucking, you know, societies, like, these are the people. And like I said, it's not me here today. It's all on record on my videos, my live streams. It's all there that anyone can see. Way back when this first started happening, I was saying, you need to worry about protecting the people in the long term. Now, of course, I was kind of going by my own personal experience and circumstance with my grandmother, but I knew that that was the same for anyone that had someone in these facilities. Because if you know, like any kind of virus or anything that's contagious, we all know that humans were amazing. Come on, we've been evolving, whether you believer of God or the fact we all have, you know, evolved to it. Our bodies have developed to be able to deal and handle with these things through. That's how we survived as a species, right? But once I realized they were trying to shut down the entire economy, close off society, locking people up, forcing them to wear masks, but there was no massive mandates or restrictions or anything to make sure we were protecting the elderly at the time. There was nothing about that, right? It's like, wait a minute, this seems really fucked up here. So you want to close down everything, shut down society, but you're not focusing on the people who are the most vulnerable, because we all know I've been to visit my grandma, and if I had a cold or a flu, not the COVID, even just a common cold, I'd be like, yeah, I'm not going to visit grandma today, right? Duh.
Yeah.
Don't need
Well,
no one
this is the
fucking
same thing.
government. Don't need Dr. Bonnie Henry. Don't need fucking Trudeau. Don't need anyone to tell me that probably not a good idea to go, visit your 90-some-year-old grandma when you got a cold and she's very vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
Simple
Common
fucking
sense.
shit. And
It's
now,
close to every house
now to see that after 80% of all the deaths in all of Canada have died in these long, and now they're saying, oh, now we need to start worrying about what the hell? Like, who are these people that are in? Because like, I'm nobody. I'm just nobody. I've never been trained in any medical field, but I at least understood that. Yeah, let's protect the vulnerable, right? I kind of understood that. Why was that not the emphasis? Why was it seemingly emphasized that we got to close down, we got to shut down mom and pop and the churches? How fucked up is it? Like, this stuff is like, this is how you know that there's ideological bullshit underlying, because nobody can give me anything that will resonate in my mind. And I'm a good thinker, right? I'm a critical thinker here. Nothing resonates in my mind where Costco, Walmart, go ahead. Church, where they're actually fucking, I've seen the churches where they've actually had the pews separated. They've even got the whole pews separated so that everyone has to sit, and they still won't let them fucking do it. So really? So that's what it is. You're going to target people, and what it is, and that the video that I was talking about from Rebel earlier today, or it might have been another one I was watching, completely and perfectly illustrated why they're targeting the Christian community. Because the Christian community says, God is my authority, not fucking government, not Trudeau, right? Not Kenny. God is my authority. And they can't stand that, because think about it. If the rest of Canadian society said, no, I can get my morals and ethics without the state. I know what's good, what's bad, what's right and wrong. Don't need the state to impose that on me. Then think how the emperor would truly have no clothes at that point. That's specifically and purposely why the secular world, and that's predominantly the left these days, are constantly, they're filling the positions up of government, and they're the ones that are constantly targeting the right, because they realize that not just libertarians, but Christians, anyone that doesn't perceive as the state as their authority, are a threat.
What do you think about our culture right now? Not just about like around liberty and stuff like that.
Right.
Because I do worry about. So there's some really disturbing stuff happened. Like a couple months ago, there was that like crap on Netflix, like Cuties or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
How do we? I hate to like bring all this disturbing stuff up, but it's like,
oh, go ahead. It's important stuff.
So degenerative.
Yeah.
How the hell do we come back from this?
Well, it's what they call progress. It's what they call being progressive. And it's a joke. A pedophile is a pedophile. I don't care if you're male or female or identify as either or. If you get your jollies out of playing with a little kid, we got a problem. And as far as I'm concerned, you deserve a bullet, not a trial. Okay, a trial to prove your guilt. Okay, a trial to see. Okay, I believe in due process. All right. But if you're guilty, I would sooner take a bullet about yay big, hire someone with a gun, done.
Yeah.
That way you save the Canadian taxpayer or provincial taxpayer $45,000 to $55,000 a year.
17 cents for a 5.56,
Yeah.
There you go. Done. Well, don't give me this medical castration or this ongoing therapy. Okay, they tried that with serial killers. Look what happened.
Doesn't work.
They put them on death row for 10 years, and that's it. Serial killers in Canada, okay, they're just denied parole, but they're still living a decent life. They can get an education and what have you for committing heinous crimes. So I can understand a crime of mercy or a crime of passion.
Yeah.
Okay, I can understand that, but you kill someone out of rage, you serve time.
I was thinking
you serve time.
Not just like the disturbing, for some reason, enabling pedophiles to do disgusting things, but outside of that kind of sexual depravity, it's the music, it's the entertainment, it's all of it. It is all made.
They encourage it.
It's disgusting. And it's
We've talked about this before, Fred. Cardi B encourages that kind of behavior. The WAP song. What is that?
How is it a healthy society?
How is that being liberating?
Nothing healthy about it.
How is it liberating
for
Fred, an artist with Gorilla Glue?
Young man. Sorry.
I was just trying to be funny here because that Gorilla Glue incident.
With that chick with the Gorilla Glue. Yeah, I know, right?
It's like, well, it's glue. You don't put it in your hair.
It's weird. I went a whole 50 years of my life and didn't have to have anyone tell me shouldn't put fucking crazy.
How did you use it?
But anyways, to reference what Fred was saying, because I think he pointed at something really important. And that's the thing. As a libertarian, I want to emphasize this as a libertarian, so the other libertarians realize that this is important too. You know, the 3 principles of liberty, right? Self-ownership, property rights, non-aggression, very important. But once again, if those were my only guiding principles in my life, I would still feel like I was void and missing something. That's where Christianity has stepped in. And so far, I've yet to find anyone else to duplicate or replicate that. And hopefully it will. But it's this thing against hedonism, against, you know, like, once again, there's nothing I can describe in the fiber of my being that says, but I just know it when I see it, right? Just like porn, right? You just know it when you see it. And I'm nothing against, like I say, my brother's gay. Now, I would suggest, I'm not a psychologist, never played one on TV, but I would suggest, you knew my mother, I would suggest there's some things that are outside just the fact that he was born that way, right? I would suggest that, but I don't want, and I'm the kind of person that I don't know. Well, I've lived, and I know that people go through hardships and difficult things in time, and they come out on the other side of that in different ways. And I don't know, and I can't explain why some people go some ways, some people go the other. I don't, but I can say that it's Christianity. It's that's given me the ideas and the emphasis on rejecting hedonism, not just for myself, but promoting, you know, not turning towards that. Because self-pleasure, if you look to a libertarian or the philosophy, there's nothing that restricts or restrains that, right? Which is why it's just not enough on its own. It's okay in terms of if you want to deal with each other socially, economically. That's what the libertarian philosophy deals with. But in terms of morals and ethics in your own personal life, or to guide you to be a decent, you know, human being, there's nothing really much in that, which is why, like, Christianity and even some secular people today, Richard Dawkins, atheists, even Brett Weinstein, lots of people that come from the scientific realm are like, fuck, how do we, there's no way to replace this. Christianity, it's mystical, it's a concept, it's a fiction, but it's very important for the reason that it appeals to our very sensibilities as human beings, is what keeps us, you know, separated from just nature, what keeps us as being moral, ethical characters. And like I say, I don't know what's going to fill that void, but until we have found something to fill that void, I'm not ready to throw the baby with the bathwater, which is why I will never reject Christianity. And I was actually amazingly pleased and surprised to see the most popular philosopher on the fucking planet, I'll add, Stefan Molyneux, actually come around. He's an atheist. He's been an atheist his whole life. Come around. He has come around and admitted himself, I got to align with the Christians here, because there's nothing in the philosophical world, there's nothing in the secular world that can replace or reproduce or replicate all that amazing knowledge that was built up over, you know, millennial, actually, like thousands and thousands of years of knowledge, right? So yes, we got to keep this emphasis and this importance, because hedonism, and just explain to this young man, what's your name again? Sorry,
Fred.
Oh yeah. So just so you understand, look, this is not the first go around for this. If actually you even look back through the Roman history during the Roman Empire, the rise and fall, actually this kind of thing took place, and I'm sure it's happened multitudes of times. I'm just saying, for the modern knowledge that we're privy to today, that's easily and readily available, look under, even just if you look up Caligula Caesar. He was the Caesar at the time. No, but the late state, what's the late stages of,
I'm thinking of the movie that Malcolm McDowell did. Yeah.
Oh, there's a movie? Oh, okay.
Caligula?
Late stage Rome is really feminized compared to the early days of
not just feminized, but massive amounts of hedonism. And what I think it is people, when they've lost that guidance or something that brings genuine meaning in their life, which is what Christianity and the pursuit of being good and decency and all, it gives you a goal or something to work towards. But once you have, well, what will we degrade and denigrate ourselves back into the state of nature, or just pure selfish pleasures, right? And if that's, I mean, selfish pleasure is not the worst thing on the planet, but if that's your all-encompassing focus on your goals in life, yes, you're definitely going to live in a society that's not going to respect or adhere to the kind of fundamental principles or ideas or ethics as you or I would adhere to, which is why, like I say, I will never turn my back on the Christian people, the Christian community, or the people who have been the most staunch advocates of liberty and the live, let live mentality. I mean, even another thing I'll bring up, Stephen Molyneux, he even had to admit all the people that have attacked him online over the years, right? Because he's taken on every big idea, and he's gone at it forthright. The only people who have never attacked him, and he's actually gone and said some bad things. Well, not bad, but he pointed out how Christianity, some of the fallibilities and the mysticism of it, but the Christian community never attacked him, right? And he recognized all the people who are attacking me and want to throw me to the wolves or sacrifice me for this collective or the greater good are a bunch of secular atheists, not the Christian community, right? So that tells me a lot in terms of what the West represents, why Christianity and that free market capitalism is so important, and why we have to keep and maintain them for as long as humanly possible until we can figure out what's the next great advancement or leap forward. Well, I don't want to use that term leap forward, actually, because somebody will say I'm a commie or something, right? But, what's the next advancement or achievement in terms of the human development in the race in terms of freedom and liberty? But yeah, let's do our best to not throw out all the people. Like I say, let's talk to as many people as we humanly possibly can. I even say, communist, socialist, reach out to me. I want to talk to you folks, because I assure you that I have no ill intentions towards you other than trying to help explain that what the people who are telling you that you should promote or espouse this stuff, they don't have your best interests at heart. Trust me.
Exactly.
They're going to use you as the sacrifice for their greater good. Don't fall for
that. History has proven that too. Yep. Okay, gentlemen, I'm going to ask for a few more questions from the audience here.
Yep.
And I'm going to shut this down in the next 10 minutes. So please get your questions in. And if anybody would like to get a hold of
all the space here, folks.
No problem.
Of course.
If you want to get a hold of Fred, you can find the Fred Stockman podcast at Anchor FM, a great podcast, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to find Bennett, the Canadian Libertarian, you can find his channel on YouTube. You can also find me at CrustyCanuck.ca. You can find me on Podbean. You can also find me on YouTube as well. Every week, I try to get a decent episode up for all you listeners out there. Later on, I'm going to be working on some more videos since I knew we got the new streaming service. And in the future, in the near future, I'm going to be working on some comedy. Something to break our minds from all this political rhetoric BS. If you feel like donating, please. I already have some characters in the works. If you feel like donating, please go to CrustyCanuck.ca. Donation links are on the page there. Sorry?
Just don't dress up as Justin Trudeau. You might get canceled for it.
You just gave me an idea.
No. I'm thinking of Justin Trudeau is like
I can get a frilly wig and do a little dance for you if you like. Yeah.
Sweet.
Diversity.
Like Aladdin,
So please, ladies and gentlemen, if you like, please give me a thumbs up if you like this show. Click the notification bell on YouTube for more content coming your way. Another question coming at us. We've got a few cheers. Okay. So please, ladies and gentlemen, the next 10 minutes, give us some more questions. Give us your feedback on this. Keep the dialogue going. Let people know that we Canucks and our American friends, we care. We care a lot of what's going on in the world today, whether it's Canadian Parliament, the American Congress, or in the world at large. Please let us know what's going on. Get your questions in ASAP. Yeah, so another topic, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. We've talked about libertarianism. What's your speculation, Bennett, if they do call an election in June?
I don't get too much into the speculation or prediction of votes and how the process plays out. Because like I say, I recognize that, tell you the truth, I would imagine if a vote was actually called, the Liberals may very well gain even more. That's what I'm worried about, to be honest with you. And that's the part that's most disturbing. I think the Liberals may even get their chance of majority because there's so many people who are beholden to the state. That's the thing, to get yourself in a position where, what is it? As soon as the lockdowns were imposed, it reached up to 8.9 million, right? And if you think about out of the 38 million Canadians, if you extrapolate that number from how many are actually participants in the active workforce, right? I think it worked out to 1 in 5 Canadians is actually what the number is. And actually, it came out just the other day in CTV, I think it was CP24 and CBC, that, 1 in 5 Canadians jumped on CERB. And that was just, for the individual. There was also for the businesses, the CRB. There's
Yeah.
So who knows if you think about
Serb
it,
and SEBA, like, yeah.
right. So if you're looking at 9 million just for Serb, and then we realize how many reports has been put out there, like what, up to half of Canadians are literally a couple $100 from insolvency. And all that's been taking place is government has taken like this young man's future income, and they've pulled that forward to paint over the malfeasance in the economics, and they're going to use his whatever he's going to produce for the next 10, 20, 30 years to pay off some of these debts. But once again, I worry about what the hell could this young man and the millions of other young men like him or women, right? That what they could have produced and what that could have gone to that was much more beneficial than paying for a bunch of fucking people who obviously never took any time of their life. And like I say, I've had the state take my livelihood, my career, almost everything for me, and I still never turn to the state because I have people around me that care about me, that will help me in my time of need and respect me. That tells me that these fucking 9 million people. So what it is you've forsaken everyone around you for the state, and now the state is the only one that you have to take care of you. How much have you fucked up in your life, right? It's like, this is the problem. There's far too many Canadians today, young and old. Mostly old is these days, because those are the ones that have been doing the voting for the last 30, 40 years, who have been using the government, the state, as their means to an end. And once again, at the expense of future generations who not only they have to deal with the kind of rise of authoritarianism, but now they're economically saved to the point where they don't even have the kind of purchasing power. It's devalued every day. How can these young people do anything to fight against, what they're up against when, like I say, they're socially and economically enslaved to the point where they're running around with one hand and one foot tied behind their back? It's such an impossible scenario. Now, it will make them. One thing I will say, though, you young men, you'll be one strong fucking dude. you will have, but I don't like it that way, right? I don't want you to be strong and resilient. Just by the sheer fact. What's that? Sorry?
If we're going through hard times, of course we need strong men. And really, one thing that disturbs me kind of, if we want to talk about culture, is like the amount of like the push for like transgenderism and all that kind of stuff. Because it's like you just want to make men weak. Like in middle school, we had, or I don't know, you guys probably call it middle school. So, but for other people, I mean, we usually call it secondary school and stuff like that. But okay, despite they teach you about all this transgender crap and all this gay stuff, and it's like that's like less than 1% of the population. We spend months on it. It's like that just confuses kids. It confused me. I wasn't sure. I did not know I liked girls until I was like in high school and actually started like thinking about it myself. But that is really like shocking to me now that I look back at that. How disturbing is that kind of push now? They really want to soften men up, whatever it is. It's not just like that sort of thing. It's what we eat, like they push like depravative lifestyles upon people, like fat pride and all this stuff. And I just they want you to be soft. They don't want you to, because if they have strong masculine men in society, they lose control of it immediately.
Oh yeah.
Well, like I've said too, I've had a situation where I made a comment in a discussion I had at the workplace, and that person had me fired because that person felt unsafe. And yet I was not given the opportunity to see my accuser or to talk to my accuser about it. And from being in the military, I have been trained in conflict resolution. If I was training a soldier and I was out of line, that soldier had these options: to talk to me about it or talk to my supervisor about it. Okay. I was not treated that way. So I see your point there, Fred, when it comes to the whole safety and all that. Now, I've dealt with soldiers that were overweight. I was overweight. I still am. I could lose another 10, 15 pounds. Fine.
And I'm not the most masculine man, by the way. I'm not.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. But when it comes to personal health and perspective, okay, if someone is a little bit bigger and they have trouble, they're diabetic, I can understand the medicinal part of that. Okay, I've had family members who had thyroid issues. Okay, but they were still active in society. They went to work, paid their bills, looked after loved ones. They were still mobile, and they never bragged that their shit didn't stink. Okay, they were very humble. But I can see your point with the whole vanity thing, that, oh, big is beautiful. Okay, well, if you accept yourself as a big person, hey, so be it. But then don't encourage that behavior, because then I might as well encourage everyone to do this. Okay, I smoke cigarettes. That's my downfall. but that's my
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah,
Okay.
actually, that's another thing I wanted to point out libertarians too, because I'll even attack ourselves, myself, is because once again, this is where the area, because yeah, I'm agreeing with both of you here. I don't want to specifically target attack people if they're overweight or obese or anything, because I realize that, hey, maybe some of these people, like some people use alcohol, some people use drugs, some people use food to deal with their issues, right?
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
I would never attack, because unless I know that person, but
No,
what
but
what I would suggest, like this young man saying, is let's at least not pretend that overweight is preferable, right? Or something to be admired or respected, as opposed to someone who puts in hard work and effort to be in shape or fit, right? Not to say that you should hate or loathe or treat anyone disrespectfully if they're overweight, but let's not play these fucking stupid games, right? To suggest in any way
that as a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, that's all. That's
it's like back in the 90s, you watch some modeling magazines. Look at some of the models they had there.
Yeah.
They emphasized the look of being on heroin.
right?
That was scary. And that's a bad image to tell young girls too, that you have to be this way.
Yeah.
They're not telling kids to be themselves.
Yeah.
To grow up. Like if little Billy's 13 years old and he's taking sex ed and he goes through his puberty, all of a sudden he likes his best friend Bill. Well, okay, power to you, Billy, power to you, whatever. Knowing who you are, that's great. And that's the emphasis that should be on knowing who you are, not constantly drilling it in people's faces. 2 and 2 is 5 because we say so. 2 and 2 is 6 because we say so. No, if Billy has a problem and can't figure something out, then it's great that there's a foundation there to help him get into that, to understand that. We were lucky. We grew up, hit puberty. Well, hey, we like girls. Hey, I got dad's porno mags to prove it. But in the same sense, we've all, it's like a rite of passage. Many moons ago, men had to go to the wood to fight the wolf. Now, in the 1980s, whoa, dad's penthouse, score. I'm right there. Exactly. Yeah. And then you had to learn. But I can see Fred's point too, that this constant reminder of, there's these identities and there's this. It's like, well, no, biologically, there's male and female. You do have the choice to live your life either or, that's fine. But if you stand to pee and you scratch your balls, but you call yourself Roberta, I got some news for you.
If you are if you have a penis and you wish to go into the woman's room, and my mum or my sister is in there, I will beat you up if you
well, you know what I like, and that's
I'm not advocating violence, but if you go and try to like touch my mum or my sister or something like that,
I hear you, man. And you know what? I think the best argument I've ever heard, and yeah, I'm sorry, I'll tie this up there, Crusty, because I know I've been kind of but I think the best argument in terms of against this push for like the especially the whole trans thing and stuff, in terms of like, once again, I would never, and I've talked with people and actually have interviewed with L is another Canadian.
Oh, cousin L, yep,
a trans person, right? Nothing against her at all, right?
I loved her show.
I respect people for like, right? I would suggest that there might be some, but once again, do your thing. But once again, what I like the argument is, and I think it's most conducive, and I think most people are more accepting of it, is the fact that, especially for women, right? It's because with this whole trans movement, and even Elle would admit to this, is men are using this, right? Opportunists are using the fact that, there's this trans movement to, throw on a wig, throw on a little makeup, and go jump in the MMA ring or any other competitive sport and start fucking up some chicks, right? It's like, what the hell? What are we going to go to the political correct bullshit where we're now going to start allowing men to get in, beating the shit out of women? Or like, really though?
That's a bit of a oxymoron there when you think.
This is one area where I'll stand in defense of my fine female counterparts, people like my fine wife, my aunts, my grandmothers, and other beautiful women, my son's girlfriends. Is like, yeah, women are women. Stop trying to fucking destroy the fact that there are such things as men and women, because women fought long and hard to be respected, and acknowledged as genuine human beings, right?
And they put up with our shit.
And I'm not talking about the feminists. I'm not talking about the haters of men. I'm talking about women that just wanted to be respected as human beings as well. Can we at least keep that, front and center? Not saying we should reject or hate on people who have gender dysphoria or any issues with their their gender. I'm like I say, let people deal with their stuff. I feel bad for anyone that's, anything they're dealing with, and whatever they can do to help themselves out, to be, better in their mind, and to be able to live themselves in some way and be happy, prosperous, and fruitful. Well, the better they are in their minds, right, the better the rest of us in society are too. So good for them, whatever they do. Just don't pretend or put forth the notion that this is normal, or like I don't know who was saying earlier, might have been you, John, with the CBC, with the fucking CBC, like where you got bringing trans people now into like reading to kids and stuff. Like, can we stop promoting hedonism? Nothing against people that have issues or doing their thing, but we're affecting society. We're not doing this.
Just leave kids alone. That's the thing. Leave kids alone. Let them go and find themselves.
Yeah.
If Billy wants to be 18 years old and he goes to that island of hedonism in the Caribbean, knock yourself out. But guess what, bud? Bring your condoms.
Yeah.
Right? Well, really, but let kids grow into that on their own terms.
Yeah, leave the goddamn kids alone.
Just like you had to, just like Fred had to, like I've had to. Self-discovery is the best tool. Brandy says it's about accountability of oneself, circumstances and health, financial abundance, exactly. Taking responsibility for your shit.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter how you identify. Knowing your shit and take responsibility for it. We'll take a few more questions, ladies and gentlemen, and then we'll shut this down for another evening of the Crusty Canuck Thursday Fastball. My guests tonight are Bennett Hunter, Canadian Libertarian, and Fred Stockman of the Fred Stockman Podcast. Please keep your questions clean and sincere. We don't care if you use an F-bomb or a C-bomb. Just make sure they're genuine. If you like what you see and hear, please click the notification bell on the YouTube channel, or you can find me on Podbean under Crusty Canuck. And if you'd like to donate, just follow the moving link at the bottom, crustycanuck.ca. I take PayPal, buy me a coffee, and if you want to give me an e-transfer, just send me an email at crustybcanuck67@gmail.com. Like I said, you can find Fred at the Fred Stockman Podcast at Anchor FM, Bennett Hunter at Canadian Libertarian on YouTube, and myself on the Crusty Canuck channel on YouTube and Podbean, respectively.
You can find me on YouTube also.
Sorry?
Fred Stockman on YouTube also. That's where.
Oh, yes, of course. Fred, you can also find Fred on YouTube as well.
Check that out, Fred, for sure. And post all the links in your stream there, Crusty, and I want to check out Fred's stuff there. That's pretty awesome. But yeah, I definitely agree with all this, and like I say, I'm really glad that you agreed to bring me on there today, John, and have this conversation, because this is like I say, I love having conversations with other people to talk about this stuff, and it's not just good for us, but I think it's good for anyone that's watching this stuff. This is how it's done, folks. Just talk.
Yeah, good dialogue. You got great dialogue.
You got something you want to get off your chest, rather than going out and gossiping or fucking turning towards pivoting to collectivism or the gang or collectivism. Just reach across the divide, reach across to someone and say, hey, you want to talk about this stuff? That's what I do on a regular basis, and for the most part, it always works out to be proper. And you know what? That's how we humans are supposed to do with each other, right? Mm-hmm. This online text where you can just pretend that you have no genuine relationship with society at all, and you're so far removed that you can just constantly insult. It's weird. It's the weirdest fucking thing ever. Because like I said, nobody in my whole life that I've ever lived, right, would ever walk up to me personally and say the kind of shit that I get inundated with regular on social media. No one would ever fucking pull that. But everyone feels so comfortable with this stuff. But to me, if you want to weed out the fakers, the wannabes, and the ideologues, just look at the people who are willing to sit and talk, right? Crusty has already shown, Fred has already shown, and I've already shown. I got no agenda other than let's just figure it out here, folks. How can we live amongst each other?
No copyright infringement here,
right?
Exactly.
Right on.
Well, I take one more question. Well, a couple more questions there from Brandy again. Well, not a question, it's a statement. Thank you very much, Brandy Lawson, for that. If people focused on themselves and their responsibilities instead of what others, they wouldn't notice what others are doing. Yeah, really. Basically, mind your own business, folks.
Yeah.
Who cares what your neighbor's doing? If your neighbor has a ton of tomatoes and you have half an acre of corn, work something out. If not, carry on about your business.
Yeah.
Another statement here from Sue Kozazowski, original talk radio style. Yeah, she's a big fan. Give her a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. She's also member of the podcast on my YouTube. So great.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. So by all means, folks, if any more questions, I think we'll shut her down, gentlemen. Great talk. Fantastic.
I will just say one thing in reference to was it the Brandy thing is yes, I'm not a fan of the envy and resentment, and it does predominantly come from those on the left today. Is rather than be resentful or envious of people who might have achieved or attained any success that superseded anything, you would use that. What I've always done in my life is use that as the springboard to try to raise and elevate yourself. I look up to the people who have strived to attain and they have achieved success, and I use them as a figure, like I want to replicate or duplicate their success, or at least strive to try that. I don't resent them for that, right? Unless they've used force or violence as a means to an end. But people who have become successful, whether it's personal, social, or economical, use that. And I would always suggest that even to my own sons or anyone else out there. Don't fall into this thing where you see people that might have something that's more than you have, right? Maybe talk to those people. Don't resentful. Don't steal from them. Maybe talk and say, hey, maybe you can give me a pointer or some tips or some hints. Maybe how could I do that? Yeah. How could I do that for myself? Right? What is your secret to your success? And that's what I've always found in life is I don't want to tear other people down. I want to raise myself up. Right. And the only way I can do that is there's got to be somebody. How am I ever going to raise myself up if I don't perceive of anyone that has exceeded me in some capacity or fashion? Right. That's what gives me something to strive for. If you've eliminated anything and it's like, what? Oh, I have nothing to strive for now? Because that's what the leftists, the collectivists, the utopians are saying. We're all perfect just the way we are. Well, then you have nothing to strive for. You have no goals. You don't really have much meaning in your life. So no wonder these people seek out different methods to, find escapism, right, of the real world, because they don't want to function in the real world, because in the real world, they see themselves as losers, of never being producing or beneficial to society. And what a terrible, terrible way to live. I would not want to do that to my own children. I would not want to do that to anyone that's around me. I want to not just teach them, but inspire and embolden them to strive for success. Like I say, whether it's in the personal realm, the social realm, or the economic realm, do your best. As long as you treat people with dignity and respect, it will pay dividends, not just in the economic realm, but what it'll do for you as a person. There's no price on that stuff, right?
It'll come back to you in the universe one way or the other.
Yeah, 100%.
Karma is an unforgiving bitch. We all know that. So, Fred, anything else to say before we shut her down tonight?
Love the people around you. Western civilization is the best. Pretty simple, man. Live the extraordinary ordinary. You don't have to strive for the best thing in the world. You can just be the best that you are in right now. The hand you've been dealt. I happen to be a construction worker. I try the best at that. So
right on.
Live the extraordinary.
Right. Well, I'll just get the last few statements from our lovely viewing audience here from Wicked to the Now. Great show. Thanks to Crusty and his guests. Thank you, Wicked to the Now, for tuning in. We really appreciate it. I appreciate it especially. Thank you very much. From Brandy again, teach my kids to be grateful for what they have worked towards achieving and they want. Well said. Well said. From Mr. Dave Hemmington, good show, guys. Crusty, if you're coming to our area diving this summer, Demi, we'll get together for a beer and a blunt. Sounds good. Nice. I've got some homemade mead I'm just itching to get into.
You partake, do you, Crusty?
Yes, I do take the odd smoke now and again. And nice. I put on 2112 and I go off into the universe. Temple of Syrinx, baby. Gotta love it.
Right on.
Excellent. Let's see who else here. I'm a Kulik again. Well, thank you. Yes, definitely. I can do it. But you don't want to know something?
Oh, that's good.
I still enjoy tobacco. So, if I die, I'm going to die fucking happy.
Right on. You do you, Crusty.
Exactly. So, Tommy Gunn, 3 cases of mead in the closet. Well, maybe they should come out and identify themselves. No pun. But yeah, I get your point, Tommy. Well done. So, right on. Tommy, thank you. No, thank you. And I want to thank all of my viewers, especially every live stream I have done the past few weeks. Without you lads and ladies, it would have not have been as successful. It's only getting better. Like I say again, please consider donating to CrustyCanuck.ca. Check out the logo at the bottom too. Check out my shop. If you use the code PWSS, all capital letters, 20% off of your next Crusty purchase. I have hats, I got stickers, I got mugs, I got t-shirts, I got patriotic gitch for the lads and sexy swimsuits for the girls too. So bring out your inner Baywatch and buy yourself a Crusty Canuck swimsuit today. Anyhow, enough of this stuff. I should have gotten to radio. Hey, fuck politics. I should get to radio.
Right on.
Mama said I was a fight for radio. So, we'll get that going.
Right on.
But I want to thank my guest tonight, too. Bennett Hunter, Canadian Libertarian, all the way from New Brunswick, Canada. And Mr. Fred Stockman from Massachusetts, US of A, the Kiwi American, very inquisitive, artistic young man. And careful with the airsoft. They might be banning those up here pretty quickly, Fred.
You guys first ones. They don't allow it in Australia, actually.
Really? Australia, they don't like airsoft?
I know. It seems like they would.
You think it'd be over like a fat kid and a Smartie? You'd be like, wow, why not?
They have gel blasters, which are kind of the same thing, but they're not quite as. They don't shoot as fast.
Well, it's like, little Ralphie. You shoot your eye out. Shoot your eye out.
They're probably going to unban airsoft, though, because it was banned back in the 90s because the police were like, oh, these look like real firearms. So I see why, but I don't agree with it. It's stupid.
Well, needless to say, it's a shit show. But what we can do is just keep the dialogue going and do what we can do. So like I say, ladies and gentlemen, you can find Fred at Anchor FM, the Fred Stockman podcast. You can also find him on YouTube, his channel there. You can find Bennett at the Canadian Libertarian on YouTube as well. Every week you put a video out, Bennett, usually?
I'm usually video live streams, and I'm on basically almost, probably a dozen different social media platforms now. So just look for Canadian Libertarian somewhere.
Right on. You can find me too, CrustyCanuck.ca. Links on my website, the donations, and my videos. You can also find me on Gab, Telegram. You can also find me on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on the tube here. You can also find my videos and the actual podcast on Podbean. So without further ado, thank you again, panel, for a great discussion, fantastic discussion. And thank you, my audience, for tuning in, and donations alike too. Probably Monday or Tuesday, I'll have an episode up. If you want to catch me again, I'll be on the Adam Danny Mosé hidden stream, or a hidden gem live stream he does every week. I'm part of the panel there, so I have a good talk and a good chat. Tune in there. If not, pay attention to my community page and Facebook page for updates on my next episode coming up either Monday afternoon or sometime early Tuesday. And next week, I'll have another episode of the Crusty Canuck Thursday Fastball, guest yet to be determined, but I'll get that posted for the community page as soon as possible. So, ladies and gentlemen and panel, thank you very much for coming out. Without you, this show would not be where it's at, and it's only getting better. Like I always say, look after your friends and loved ones. And remember, humanity and merit wins the day. Take care, all. See you next time.
Cheers.